If I can have your attention, we're going to go ahead and start the council meeting. If you can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. After that, we'll have our invocation. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we have Gary Tucker, our police chaplain. If you can remain standing, please.
Please bow with me in prayer. Oh Lord, we give thanks for this day and for this night. We uplift this meeting for your guidance and your direction. Give the mayor and council members wisdom in the decisions they make tonight. We give thanks for the time the mayor and council give to guide and direct the city of Santa Ana. We're blessed to have the organizations and employees and citizens that are being honored here tonight and to be recognized. Continue to bless Santa Ana, that it continues to be a great place to live and work, shop and dine, play and pray. And all God's people said, Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Are you okay?
At this point, I would like our 20 and 25-year of service employees to join me. Nasser Rich, James Bergwanger, and John Rodriguez, if you can please join me at this time. Madam City Attorney, I'm about to recognize some wonderful employees here. Some have been with the police department for 20 and 25 years. I believe they've done a wonderful job. And there's a couple signs here, especially in the front row, that I believe are offensive and inappropriate. Can I ask that they be removed, Madam City Attorney?
Mayor, they can't be removed from the chambers, but to the extent that some of the offensive language is visible to the media that's being transmitted over television, we could ask them out of respect if they would locate to another spot so that it's not televised.
Well, how about this young man right here on the front row with the...
Again, well, we all recognize that people have First Amendment rights, and we're most respectful of those rights when we're in a chamber such as this one. I think we would ask for respect if you would move so that the young children that can see this visibly from television might not have to see that. No. All we can do is ask, and we can ask for respect in our chambers, and we would ask you to respect us as we would respect your rights. There'll be a time for public comment, but not now. I think the mayor has made...
Well, look, I am a huge supporter of our city employees and, especially our police officers. I think they do a wonderful job day in and day out. So I'm going to proceed with the presentations at this time. Why don't we start with our senior public works agency senior engineer, Mr. Nasser. Are you? How do I pronounce your name? Nasser? Standing to my right is Nasser Risk, and I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with him recently, and this guy breathes and lives Santa Ana. Most of the years that he's been in this country, he's not only been in Santa Ana, he's been employed for the city of Santa Ana, and he loves this city. Let me just tell you a few other things about Nasser. He started here as an engineer and interim in April of 1991, and is promoted 3 months later as an engineering aide. His full-time employment began in August of 94 as a record specialist in the Public Works Agency, and in January of 1998 he was promoted to Public Works Inspector in Construction Engineering, where he inspected many important city projects, including the 17th Street reconstruction, Warsaw Square streetlight project, First American Title, their public improvements. Then in June of 1999 he became the assistant engineer, and through the series of promotions is now the senior engineer supervising Development Engineering Division. Nasser worked with property owners, developers, consultants, actually on more than 700 land development projects here in the city. While he ensured compliance and good requirements, he gets projects to go through, and look at him, he always does it with a smile. And that's worth a lot. It's a big deal. Some of the major projects he's worked on has been the Goodwill project over on 5th and Fairview. I don't know if you've been there ever, but it's an amazing, Goodwill is now a $100 million business. It's a real business, and I go there on occasion, look around, and it's amazing. He's also worked on the Orange County School of the Arts, the expansion. It's under construction right now over on Main Street. The Mark development by Lion Homes. The Orangewood Academy over on Fairview, which is doing great. They have 125 students now in their first year and a waiting list. The Triada development over in the Station District. And over the years, he's reviewed and issued more than 4,000 permits to work on public right-of-way projects here in the city. In '87, Nasser earned a BS in Mechanical Engineering, Power Plant Design. And by the way, we're both mechanical engineers. That's part of why I think he's a great guy. But also in 1989, he went beyond that. Now he has a Master's of Science in Electronic Automated Control Devices for power plants and cogeneration plants. 6 times he received the Employee of the Month Award from the Public Works Agency, and in 2000, he earned the Exceptional Quality Service Award for his great service to the city. Nasser lives here in Santa Ana with his wife of 12 years, Mary, who works as a teacher, and they have 2 beautiful children, 10-year-old son Andrew and an 8-year-old daughter Verena. And it says that in your spare time you enjoy fishing, gardening, and working on cars. Anything else?
A lot of other things.
A lot of other things, but that'll be left to our imagination.
Yes, exactly.
But Nasser, what I do know is, you have a big heart. You care about this city. You care about our constituents. You care about your fellow employees. And you've done 4,000 applications, 4,000 permits. That's a lot of people. And we're very, very happy you do it with a smile. On behalf of the city and the city council, it's my honor and pleasure to award you this. Thank you very much. Standing to my right is James D. Bergwagner, and he is a motor officer assigned to traffic division, and he's formerly a field training officer. Jim has worked a variety of assignments, including patrol, dedicated patrol, background investigations, collision investigations, and traffic. During his time as a collision investigator, he investigated major collisions and was responsible for reconstructing several fatal collisions. Because of his expertise, he's able to give testimony in court and does a wonderful job for us here in the city. He is currently a motor officer and is actively involved in the educating law enforcement on the topic of fighting insurance fraud. Jim was named Officer of the Year in 2013 by the Southern California chapter of the International Association of Special Investigation Units who combat insurance fraud. He prepared and presented instruction to Los Angeles, Orange County law enforcement agencies on recognition and strategies to investigate insurance fraud via staged collisions. There's nothing new under the sun out there. People do all sorts of weird things. He is regarded as a fraud guy by his peers, probably a fraud expert guy, somebody that, and members of the law enforcement community. He is a qualified Spanish speaker, and in a moment he's going to take over the mic. No, I'm kidding, I made that up. And he was able to obtain the status of one semester of college-level Spanish, a Spanish-speaking partner, and communicating with the community. He often translates and assists other officers in their investigation. Jim loves his job, his department. He helps citizens during difficult times. He is very grateful for the opportunities afforded to him by the Santa Ana Police Department. And I'll tell you, we are very grateful by what you give us in return. Because, service not only with a smile, but in a difficult area like investigating insurance fraud and getting to the bottom of things and really protecting all of us, there's no substitute for that. Officer Bergwagner is married with 2 children. His daughter attends college in Phoenix, Arizona, where our city manager is formerly from. I don't know where he is right now, but... Oh, right behind me. I thought, right behind me. That's why he's not there. His 10-year-old son is an inspiring actor who has appeared on half a dozen television episodes. He's 10 years old and he's on TV?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Jim's wife of 16 years, Jolene, is in charge of a daycare near their home and was responsible for homeschooling their son until just recently. Jim's hobbies include kayaking, mountain biking, and it says you have a passion for boating.
Absolutely.
Power boats?
Power boats.
His mother is a nurse. His father was a police officer. His brother is serving our country as a fighter pilot for the United States Navy, and his sister lives in Washington. Nasser, I forgot to ask, was any of your family present?
Yeah, actually, my wife.
Can you, I forgot, Nasser's wife, can you please stand? I messed up earlier by not acknowledging her. Are they here? Okay. And I was going to ask Jim, but he told me they're not here. Anything I missed? Anything you'd like for me to add?
Covered it all.
Covered it all.
Still a great department.
An awesome department, and with a great chief and great people within the Santa Ana Police Department. Chief, why don't you join me here with both of us? And I don't know why we do this. I've been doing this a long time. I know the 25-year is smaller than the 20-year, but it must be more valuable. There must be something nicer in here than in the big box. Maybe it's a watch or something. But look, no matter what it is, you deserve it. 25 years is a long time. Not a lot of people make those type of benchmarks, and you're doing a lot of things right to receive this honor. Thank you for honoring us. Standing to my right is John G. Rodriguez. Officer Rodriguez was born here in the city of Santa Ana, and it says you were raised in the city of Orange. It's all right. El Medina High School. But then he came back to Santa Ana. He served in the United States Marine Corps as a military policeman. Officer Rodriguez worked various assignments throughout his career, including working as a narcotics detective, both on the major narcotics team and the regional narcotics suppression team. He was member of the SWAT team for 20 years and served the Orange County first full-time SWAT team known as the Strike Force. Officer Rodriguez was awarded the Santa Ana Police Department's Medal of Valor for an incident involving an armed suspect who shot 2 Long Beach police officers. He's also received 2 Santa Ana Police Department Service Medals of Valor for actions during encounters with armed suspects. Officer Rodriguez was awarded the Santa Ana Police Department Uniformed Officer of the Year honors for the year 1995. Officer Rodriguez is married to his lovely wife, Mabel. Is Mabel or other folks here? If you can please stand. Thank you. Says that you have a 1-year-old baby girl named Autumn May. It says you enjoy spending time with your family and eating sushi with your wife. Officer Rodriguez also enjoys outdoors, including fishing, hiking, and camping. It says Officer Rodriguez enjoys working out, which includes running, weightlifting, and CrossFit. So far, we're good. It also says you've been a member of the Santa Ana Police Department's Baker to Vegas running team, where you go out in the desert and they run from Baker to Las Vegas. And it's very, very competitive. They run against police departments from across the country, and Santa Ana is one of the top teams, I understand, yes?
Yes, sir. They're basically number 3 overall out of almost 300 teams.
Out of 300 teams, they're number 3. And we should give him an applause. That's good. He says there's no I in team, but believe me, a team is made up of a lot of folks that work together, and he's one of them. So, John, for your tremendous service to the city over the last 25 years, and your outstanding service to this community, you will both be able to see what's in this small box and compare notes, and keep it a secret, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you. I would now like to ask members of the Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society and Santa Ana community members who have been pioneers in preservation, please come up and stand behind me and join me. And I think we unofficially are going to elect Tim Rush to be a spokesperson. But as you're walking up, I'm going to read the names. Ernie Alonzo, Linda Suash, Guy Ball, Eleanor Barton, Wayne Gruel, Tina Davidson, Jeff Dickman, Brett Franklin, Ben Gabriel, James Gardner, Paul Giles, Jeannie Gillette, Tim Graber, Pauline Holloran, Janelle Hardy, April Bentendorf, Robert Berthrow, Donna Bronson, Dr. Dave Chappelle, Chief James Henry, Louise Hoffman, Chris Jepson, Colleen Kelly, Tony Kimball, Alan Dawson, James Marquez, Diane Marsh, Debbie McEwen, Lisandra Orozco, Lisa Petzenberger, Philip Chin, Rita Gorpin in memorandum, Ed Cote, Gene Papa, Ed Power, Nathan Reed, Roberta Reed, Rob Richardson, Tim Rush, Phil Schaefer, Maxine Schmid, Todd Walsh, Lynn Warner, and Allison Young. And as they come and stand behind me, let me just tell you that every one of these individuals have a lot of stories of challenges, of battles, of something they fought for, something they preserved, something where they made a difference. And I'll tell you that every single one of you has had tremendous contributions to the city. Tremendous contributions, and it's not easy, because often when you're fighting for historic preservation, you often don't have the money that others may have. You often are in an adversary position, but I'll tell you that their love and their passion for historic preservation and what they do is what compels me to recognize them as pioneers in preservation. I know that over the years we've worked on many, many projects together, and I think that it's that context of the past and framing things that makes this city such a beautiful city. We have the old, we have the new, but we love and respect the old, and we're always looking to try to figure out how to preserve and how to preserve effectively. I have a few more words to say, but prior to doing so, I want to have Tim Rush come up. I was speaking to him earlier, and if there's no objection, we're going to let him represent the group. So far, people are saying okay. So, Tim, why don't you take the floor here for a moment, please?
Thank you very much, Miguel. You know, I'm sure, even though you're probably wondering, well, we couldn't possibly have missed anybody. I know that Blair O'Callahan was someone that was a name that was overlooked, and he should be here. So, Blair, if you're watching on TV, we're going to make sure that you're included. But nonetheless, these folks and many other people, of course, have been fighting the battle for a long time to help preserve our built environment here in Santa Ana. And that includes historic preservation. It includes promoting our history as a city. This is the 40th year that the Preservation Society was founded. Adeline Walker, who is the founder of the Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society, this was her legacy. Sadly, she died in 1984, but it was her dream to preserve the Hal Waffle House, which was the beginning of the Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society. That house was going to be demolished. It's a beautiful Victorian, Queen Anne Victorian home on the corner of Sycamore and Civic Center. For those of you that have not been to the house and the Medical Museum, I encourage you to come out. The house is open every other month. Visit www.santaanahistory.com and you can learn more about it. Several of us, including myself, have hosted walking tours bi-monthly for the Society as well. Anyway, I just want to say that we should remember the folks who built this city and made it an architectural wonderland, really over 6,000 buildings that are eligible for placement on the historic registry. We have 2 historic neighborhoods, French Park and Henninger Park, and of course quite a number of other neighborhoods which qualify. But we have sometimes been at odds with the city, and sometimes we've joined hands, but at the end of the day, we appreciate the city's support for preservation and history. And it's too bad that Diane Marsh can't be here this evening. She was the one who wrote the 125-year history of the city, and I talk to her regularly. She sends her best wishes to Miguel and the council, and thanks you for your years of believing in preservation and history. We all want to say a special thank you to the council and the Historical Commission for recently rolling back the fees to make it now much more affordable to get on the registry and take advantage of the Mills Act. And the precursor to today's Historical Commission was the Historic Resources Committee, which many of us served on. That committee lasted for 11 years and cataloged all the historic buildings in the city. And Jim Marquez and I were talking before the meeting tonight about the difficulty of going out and photographing people's houses, having them run out and accuse you. They thought you were going to do something to their home. What are you doing? Why are you photographing my home? Why are you doing this? So we had to go through a half-an-hour explanation of what we were doing and why. But anyway, long road, and I won't take any more time. But Miguel, thank you very much for recognizing preservation and the history of Santa Ana. Thank you.
Tim, why don't you stand here, and folks, come a little closer, because I'm presenting this to all of you. Whereas in come on, Tim, don't be shy. None of you guys be shy. You're never shy otherwise. And that's true, Roberta. Whereas in 1974, the Santa Ana Historical Society established by a group of volunteers who aim to help preserve and celebrate Santa Ana's historical properties, architectural elements, and artifacts. And whereas the Santa Ana Historical Society has been recognized as a leading historical society in Orange County, and you all have won multiple awards. And I believe, we can't let this go without mentioning Dr. Walia Hal-Waffle just one more time, because back in 1886 through 1924, she was a practicing physician here in the city. When we had, horse and buggy days, and maintaining that house, I think, maintains a link to the past that's very strong. It's like an umbilical cord or something that connects us to just another era, but an era that's still alive today, because when you go to that house, you relive that time. You relive what all that was about. You see not only the main house, but right next to it, they've got that other little carriage house where they used to keep the horse and carriage and all that. And without things like that, we forget where we come from. We forget how society evolves and where we are today. So for all the battles, for all that you do, for all the hours, countless hours of volunteers, because none of you guys are paid. The only payment you get is from your heart for doing what you know is right and what you believe in. And that has no, it's priceless. We can't put a dollar figure on it, but you've made a tremendous, tremendous impact to the city. So for that, I, as mayor, present this to you as a Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society for your dedication and your commitment to preserve the city's history and its artifacts. Dated this day and September 2nd, 2014. Congratulations, and please, all of you, keep up the great work that you do, because you do a lot of work and you do it well, and it's much appreciated. Thank you very much. Can you help me and just take those and then we'll pass them out later?
Thank you.
Twice in a few days. Now I'm going to turn things over to Councilwoman Michelle Martinez to conduct our next presentation.
Good evening. Today I am presenting a proclamation. We have both our police, our chief of police and our fire chief, and then also our new emergency operations coordinator, Steve Reiner. The month of September is National Emergency Preparedness Month, and before I give the whereases, I would like for Chief Rojas to formally introduce Mr. Reiner, and then I would then ask our fire chief to also say a couple words about what we're going to be doing and plan to be doing in the near future in regards to emergency preparedness and why we hired Mr. Reiner. Chief Rojas?
Well, good evening. We're very excited to have Mr. Reiner on board as our emergency operations coordinator. It's been a long time coming. He is dedicated as the emergency operations coordinator for the entire city, which is first since I've been here in the last 25 years. So we're very excited about that. He comes with a bunch of experience, both with the fire side and the police side. He was a police officer back east and also served as an EMT in the fire service as well. And then for the last 7 years, he's actually been at the Orange County Sheriff's Department. So he's very familiar with emergency operations here in the county, and we're looking forward to him bringing some of that expertise here to the city of Santa Ana.
Great, thanks, Chief Rojas. If I now could have our fire chief say a couple words.
Thank you very much. My name is Devin Leonard. I'm the division chief here in the city of Santa Ana. And as we celebrate National Preparedness Month and to prepare for national emergencies, one of the things we want to keep in mind is that as we prepare for these national emergencies or these large-scale incidents, the reality is our everyday planning and the safety programs that we push out on a regular basis to the community, and we're going to be pushing out later this month at Fiestas Patrias, where we have some information booths out there and educational booths, where we talk about some basic things we need to do every day for our preparedness. Having a working smoke alarm in every one of our houses and every one of our bedrooms, making sure that children aren't swimming alone, so we put a downward spiral towards these infant drownings and child drownings having still throughout our communities. So as we talk about preparedness throughout the whole year, think about what we do every day, because that's really what's going to make our difference for our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. And I'm going to ask Steve, because I am going to present the proclamation actually to Steve Reiner as our new hired emergency operations coordinator. But Steve, if you could please just say a couple of words and how the community is going to be able to be accessible to you in your role, and how we're going to be able to work together to assuring, because it's not if, it's when an emergency happens, but making sure that our first responders and then also many of our volunteers here in our community that have been very active in regards to emergency preparedness throughout the years. Steve?
I'd like to thank the council, the manager, and the chief for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to starting this new position. Couple resources. The radioc.org website is a good place to look for emergency preparedness information for your home or family. I don't yet have an office phone number, but the police department website will have a link for me if you have any information requests or questions that I can answer. And we're going to start to renew the community emergency response team training programs that give residents information in earthquake preparedness, fire suppression, disaster preparedness for your home and family, and how you can help your community. So we'll get those up and running pretty soon as well.
Great. Thank you. And you heard Connie Hamilton clap, because she is certainly a part of that. And when we had our Santa Ana Fire Department, they were really in charge of our emergency preparedness. And then as they left, our police department took over that role with assistance with the Orange County Fire Authority. And many of the residents in the community, I remember about a year or so ago, really asked us, what next steps are you going to take in regards to emergency preparedness? And as you know, we went through a major transition, but when our city manager, David Cavazos, came on board, that was one of my top priorities, was to assure that we were going to be able to hire someone that would be able to really be the liaison of what's happening here with the city and with the county, as well as and then with the community as we move forward with our training program. But here as well at City Hall, we have to understand that there's a lot of man-made disasters as well, and issues that could possibly occur at City Hall. So we're wanting to make sure that we train all our employees as well. And us as a city council and our city manager, we are considered first responders as well. And so we certainly need to be trained in case there is a major emergency here in the city. So with that being said, so Steve, Chief Rojas, and our fire chief, if you guys could please approach us. But I'm going to actually give the proclamation to Steve, and possibly when you get your new office, you can post this up.
Thank you.
So there are a lot of whereases, so I'm just going to read the first one and the very end so we can get to the council meeting. So whereas since its inception in 2004, National Emergency Preparedness Month is observed each September and is a nationwide coordinated effort sponsored by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to encourage Americans to prepare for emergencies in their homes, businesses, and schools. Being prepared includes creating an emergency supply kit containing items that will allow you and your family to survive for at least 3 days in the event of an emergency, developing a plan that addresses sheltering in a place or evacuating the area, staying informed about different threats that could affect your community, and getting involved by training in first aid and emergency response. The City of Santa Ana encourages all its residents to register with Alert OC, a mass notification system designed to keep Orange County residents and business informed of the emergencies and certain community events. Now, I therefore, Miguel A. Polito, the City of Santa Ana, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize September 2014 as National Emergency Preparedness Month. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martinez. Now, Madam Clerk, we need a closed session report. Are we ready for that, Ms. City Attorney? So I'll call on the City Attorney at this time.
Mayor, council members, and members of the public, we had quite a few closed session items this evening. I'm going to report out to you those items that are subject to reporting under the California Brown Act. We had a conference with legal counsel regarding ongoing litigation that the city is facing with the party named Peebler and the California Department of Finance, and staff was given direction in negotiations. And the first matter listed on the agenda, Munoz versus the City of Santa Ana, which is a workers' compensation case. The council voted 7-0 to settle the matter for $74,416.25. In the matter of Diana Estrada, the City Council voted 6-0 with Councilmember Mesqua absent to settle this matter for $26,000. In the case of Alfred Murillo versus the City of Santa Ana, the City Council decided to settle this matter in the amount of $86,000. In the matter of Kendall Witt versus the City of Santa Ana, another workers' compensation case, the City Council voted 7-0 to settle the matter for $50,016.34. In the matter of Brian Lytle versus the City of Santa Ana, the City Council decided to settle this matter in the amount of $20,000 on a 7-0 vote. In the next case, Ruiz and Arzola versus City of Santa Ana, direction was provided to legal counsel. We also had a conference with legal counsel on a number of potential matters. The City Council reviewed 2 matters of potential receivership litigation and has asked the City Attorney to move forward on that. A formal report will be provided on those addresses. And then with respect to the last matter involving a potential civil or criminal case, the City Council asked me to make the following report. Over 6 months ago, the City Council engaged an investigator to look into serious allegations raised against Mayor Polito through a media report. An investigative report was prepared and has been sent to the Orange County District Attorney and the Fair Political Practices Commission. The City recently received a request for the report under the California Public Records Act, and the City declined to release the report based on ongoing investigations by both the District Attorney and the FPPC. The Council is committed to transparency and release of the report. Feeling that more than 6 months is sufficient time to make a decision, the Council directed that the report be released by September 30th if actions are not filed. While the Council continues to be respectful of the law enforcement process, it must also be responsive to its community and believes the public has a right to review this report in due time. That's the end of the reportable action.
Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on with our consent calendar. So we're going to have some speakers now.
Mayor,
Yes.
I apologize, but I do have to announce 2 hirings.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. I'm very pleased to announce that Kelly Rendier is our new Executive Director for Community Development, and that Fred Musafpour is our new Public Works Director. Kelly will start May 8th. Fred will start September 22nd. And I want to thank the council for the affirmation of these 2 appointments.
Thank you. With that, Paul Guzman, followed by Tim Houchin. And if you could please give us your address as you approach. Please go ahead, Paul. And then followed by Tim, followed by Alicia Rojas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman.
If we can start, go ahead.
I'll speak to the Chief of Police. I come before you to correct one thing. The Chief of Police made a statement this past week in the Townsend Kane Forum. I go back 60 years ago, we're here in Santa Ana. We're discriminated in school, public employment, jobs you have. We could not live north of 17th Street. Even when I came back from military service, over 4 years, I could not buy a house, even I qualified. I had to march to Sacramento from Orange County to get a bill passed so they could show me a house. I'm very sensitive to people make statements that we have gangbusters, which we do. They're criminal elements in here in the whole state of California. But they should be treated as human beings, not as a person that belongs and not in this century. They belong to giving the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and due process, no matter if we like it or not. We went through it so many years. All of you did. All of your parents did. I have relatives that were deported in Mexico in the 30s. very sensitive issues to me. I resent anyone to say they don't belong, they dress different, they look dark, look dirty, they cannot go to the swimming pool, Memorial Park, we couldn't attend it. That is a very sensitive issue. And I blame ourselves, not you, the city council, all of us are responsible for those actions. Because we don't stand up and say, these kids need a better break like our fathers, our people fought for us. I live in a better house, they don't. I have relatives there, possibly. I probably have cousins, I don't know. We're all relatives. When statements are made like that, they don't deserve. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, sir. Tim, followed by Alicia Rojas, followed by Candace Hawes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tim Houchin, and I've spoken here before and had the privilege of actually meeting in person with several of you in the past to discuss issues regarding the homeless here at Civic Center. Now, over the past week, more than 30 citations have been issued to Civic Center inhabitants whose only crime was to sleep in a public place. Now, there's an expression that says that everything that is done has to be done somewhere. And this has special meaning to many of us who are homeless because we lack the private space that would enable us to perform certain necessities of life in private, like sleeping, bathing, and going to the restroom. Now, the crime of camping can be justified based on necessity. In law, the necessity defense can be asserted when there would be a greater harm, and in this case, the greater harm would be to public safety by homeless people leaving the Civic Center and inhabiting residential and business areas of the city. Okay. Now, the practice of issuing camping citations is unfair because it makes criminals out of homeless people who are otherwise law-abiding. Sometimes the police go through our camps at early hours in the morning to wake us up. Other times they go through and wake us up and they issue us citations, all at the discretion of the officer that's on duty at the time. And I question the fairness of the city's use of what has become known in cities across the U.S. as the broken windows policy, where police use petty and minor infractions to ticket homeless people, and then they incarcerate them when they can't afford to pay the fines or they don't show up for court to fight the ticket. Now, Santa Ana is a great city, and it's a city with great expectations for the future, and I ask that this council do something great, and that's to be fair with the homeless. Now, we're not asking for you to change the laws. We're asking you to change the way that you enforce them. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Rojas, followed by Candace Hawes, followed by Breezy May.
Good evening. Buenas noches to the council. I'm here to speak on the Civic Center homeless issue that we see every day. I would like to ask the council if there is a plan yet on how, if the shelter does happen here in Santa Ana, if there's a plan on how the Civic Center population will be handled. That's something that I think it's important to figure out beforehand and try to create some kind of pathway if that is the plan, but not to displace people immediately out of the Civic Center. That is a place where services do happen, nonprofits do go, social services are still received. I would have not known about the homeless situation firsthand if it wasn't for Occupy Santa Ana 3 years ago. I did sleep there. We did create a necessity village, which did show the lack of full-time shelters in Santa Ana at the time, or in the county. I know that Santa Ana gets a lot of the homelessness from the county as well. It seems the unfair criminalization of the homeless is happening everywhere. The ticketing is unfair. It's a vicious circle that should stop. We're not really helping the issue of how people become homeless either. We're just addressing the aftermath. We need to be more proactive in creating therapeutic programs, more services to actually get people off the street. There's nowhere for them to put their belongings, and they keep getting ticketed. We saw this. We keep seeing it. It is inhumane. If they have a job interview, they can't even leave their stuff out there. They have to bring everything along with them. Creating a place for them to have their stuff be watched while they do their stuff during the day it's really important. It's a small step there. It's something that it's immediate help. We need some immediate help, also with the long term. I would like to emphasize on helping the actual costs and creating more services around, asking the county for more partnership if the shelter does go up, so the city doesn't have to bear it alone. There are artists here that can do also workshops to help in art therapy. There's many things that we can do together. So I do know that this decision doesn't rest with you. I do know that this has already been voted on. I am not sure what you can do, but I feel that you can create some kind of ad hoc committee. We don't know how long the shelter will take to be set up, and maybe a committee to communicate with the homeless community and the civic community to try to create some better implementation would be a right step in the right direction. And the last thing I wanted to address is 20A really quickly. $500,000 to be allocated to the police department to the enforcement of medical marijuana seems outdated. As you know, 2 states in the country have legalized marijuana. It seems that California might be going on the same way. It seems like a waste of money for the city to focus that on real services that could be provided somewhere else. Thank you.
Candace, followed by Breed C. May, followed by Massimo Marini.
Hi there, I'm Candace Haas, and I'm the Principal Officer of the Committee to Support Medical Marijuana Ballot Initiative. I'm also a full-time student at Cal State Fullerton, double majoring in political science and public administration. I'm here today to remind everybody to get out and register to vote. The deadline to register to vote by mail is October 14th. There will be many activities this weekend and the coming weekend, so I encourage all the Santa Ana residents to get registered and get involved in the election process. I'm also here today to tell everyone to vote yes on Measure CC. Got to thank the Register of Voters for giving us a great ballot measure number such as CC, because it's easy to remind the voters, because CC stands for Control Cannabis, it stands for Community Control, and it stands for Control the Chaos, which Santa Ana has let continue for the last 7 years. This measure sets a reasonable tax on medical marijuana. The tax the city is imposing is such that it would be 18% and may cause legitimate patients to use the collectives that are not legal because of the tax could be so high. It also requires the locations, medical cannabis collectives to be in locations that are compliant with state law. That means at least 600 feet from any school or sensitive use area. I'm also here today to talk about the court dates this morning. On 7/17 and 7/31, the City Council, or actually the Police Department under the direction of the City Council, but not officially, raided the medical marijuana collectives, arrested 120 people. Today there was 80 defendants in court in Santa Ana. There was so many defendants they had to shut one of the departments down and move all the regular arraignments to the next department. This caused a lot of chaos and havoc in the court. The judge was extremely upset that the court was being clogged up with medical marijuana patients and not with criminals. He was also upset that the city attorney's office was not prepared. I know that Laura Rossini is not, she's on vacation or whatever right now, but still, this has caused a lot of problems for the city. Now you guys have 79 people, because only one pled guilty. 79 people that are going to go to trial. They did not waive their right to a speedy trial, so on 10/6, the trials begin. If each one of those 79 people goes to trial and we have to call 12 jurors and 2 alternates, that's 1,106 people that are going to have to come to Santa Ana courts and provide their service as a jury for your guys' medical marijuana tickets that you guys had the police department issue. I think that maybe instead of spending the $500,000 on starting another round of raids, that you guys should allocate this to the legal defense fund to pay for the costs that you guys have already incurred. And then also, since I can't speak on it right now, in regards to your guys' work study, I would encourage you guys to involve the community and start perhaps a committee that includes patients, advocates, and not just city staffers in the police department. Thank you.
Brizzi May, followed by Massimo Marcini, followed by Gabriela Hernandez.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brizzi May. I'm homeless. I live in the streets. That's my address. I came to speak to you on several things. One of them is, I understand that you guys don't want us to take a shower. You complain about us being smelly, dirty, and everything. Well, everybody needs to take a shower, and we need it to be open earlier so we're not disrupting anybody else's time schedule to go to work. 6 o'clock will be just fine. And this weekend, I don't know if you people were aware of it, there was nobody cleaning the bathrooms, the lights were out, and as a woman going into the bathroom at that hour of the night is kind of dangerous. I went to take a shower. I was told I was going to get a ticket if I went to take a shower. My shower is a bucket and warm water. Thank you for the warm water, by the way. I'll get the ticket and I'll take it to court. But if you guys were dirty, I'm sure you'll go to the terminal if you had no place else to take a bath. Right? Am I right or am I wrong? You don't want to answer? Try coming out in the streets and sleeping out there and being dirty. You're not going to like it. Because I don't. I know all of you had families that came from Mexico or from some other place. We were taught when we were little to be clean. And I've been teaching my family. And my family are the people that are homeless out here. You're giving us tickets for sleeping at 4:30 in the morning. It's not fair. You're giving us tickets if we're sick and we're covered. You all know we can't afford it. We want to get out of here. You got the bus terminal empty. We put a petition, we sent papers to you. Several of you persons got a paper from us. This man is willing to give us 2 semi-beans. He's willing to pay the security for 1 year. You won't be seeing our things out there. They'll be in there. We will take care of it. He's paying for security. So no one's going to mess with it, right? We're asking the parking lot that's across from the bus terminal. There's a big space there. They're going to give us 2. Help us to be clean. Help us not get more tickets, not to waste anybody's time here, so we can go look for work, we can go to our doctor's appointment, look for a place to live, and you're not going to see us here if we just help each other. Giving us a place, a warehouse to sleep in, no windows, come on. And a fence, we're not prisoners. One of these days, I hope none of you will be out there with us. Because if you ever are, or one of your family members, I know that you are going to turn around and walk away the way you do from us. You agreed to help us out. We met with you. You agreed to let us know what's going on. You haven't let us know, like you didn't let those people know that we were going to be out there. I feel sorry for those people because they feel that it was our fault. And they talk really mean about us. We're not mean. We're not bad people. Okay? We were like you. We had jobs. For personal reasons, we're out here. Mayor,
thank you
very much, and goodbye.
Thank you, Brizzi. Massimo, followed by Gabriela Hernandez.
City Council, Mayor, thank you so much for your time. Ms. Brizzi is right on point. So, I'm not sure what you were doing Labor Day, but if you were John Doe, you were getting a ticket at 4:30 in the morning. or 441 for illegal camping. I'm not sure what you're doing at 445 or 458 or 502. There are 30 of these things. We got 15 of them in a week. What are you doing out there? I thought we've been over this. We talked about this in April. You come out, you bring us tickets for what? Here's all of 2013. Here's 300 more. We're still homeless. I hope that's what it proved. Also, there's some really interesting data in here. Of 300 tickets, only 20% of them had anything to do with drugs or anything negative. 80% of these people just got hit for being homeless. So can you please stop the tickets until you figure something out? Point 2, you have got to stop. Point 2, we've got to have a place to put our stuff. The old OCTA building can be used for 2 years, doesn't have to be long-term because I know you're trying to finish gentrifying, but we cannot have a storage unit. We can't have a storage unit 2 miles from us, got to be across the street. So you need to stop bringing that truck out because I'm sure you don't want our cardboard structures getting even bigger. We're getting tired of making them. It's exhaustive. We'd rather be doing other things, but if we're not getting your attention, then we have to keep creating larger and larger structure. You keep damaging any kind of relationships we can build with the police that are out there because you send them out to do your dirty work. You are in charge of the laws. They do have superiors. Now, I'm not letting them off the hook, not by any means, but they are to enforce the law. So I come to you. I would ask for a moratorium on camping tickets and on storage tickets until we figure this out. We have our position papers here. There's one for each of you. Do I give this to you? And there's some extras for other people in your government. And lastly, we need bathrooms at 6 a.m. I was here at 4 a.m. and used my privilege and my car to go find a bathroom. And I feel awful about that. But there are people every day that do not get to go to the bathroom, that risk going to the bathroom in your bushes. I can't see how this is good. We need 6 a.m. bathrooms at the OCTA. We've been to the county and we'll go back to the county, but this is really non-negotiable. If the cops get us up at 6 a.m., because I really hope it's 6 a.m. After that, but anything before 6 is kind of unreasonable, especially in a business district. But 6 a.m., we do the same thing when you get up, first thing in the morning, first half hour, you have your coffee, you go to the bathroom. We're just asking for the same. We will accept no less at this point. Thank you.
Gabriela Hernandez, followed by Vanessa Cerda.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here to talk about the forum that we hosted, the Gang Injunction Forum, on August 19th, where the Chief and the Orange County District Attorney also presented. And I know that Benavides showed up for a little bit, and I wish all of you would have shown up because we had a lot of good information. I think it was very clear that the community needs more forums, not just in Townsend, but throughout Santa Ana, in case the DA agrees to, serve an injunction on them. We will be hosting more forums to service providers and then also to the residents and to community members. But it was also evident that there's a need for a space for community to bring their concerns. We had a long line of residents that had concerns over their interactions with the Santa Ana Police Department. And although the chief offered their card, many of them had already started their proceedings, had already made a report or had already contacted somebody in the police department, and there was no resolution. It was also evident the relationship between police and the community is completely impaired. There's mistrust and there's a sense of betrayal. There were no clear answers from the district attorney or the Santa Ana Police Department that evening, and the community is still demanding answers. On that same evening, Chief Rojas was served by the defendant's attorneys to share evidence he provided to the district attorney through a deposition. He was ordered to show up to court this past Friday, and he no-showed. He was also ordered to show up to a deposition on Friday at 1:30, and he no-showed. Had the chief shown up, he would have saved the city a lot of money. What we're asking is for him to provide the same evidence that he provided to the district attorney to the defendant's attorneys. But now we have to seek additional hearings and sanctions for the chief. But why is it that the Chief Rojas refused to provide the same evidence to the attorneys. The defendants have a right to hear their evidence. They have the right to challenge their accuser. So why the secrecy? Is the chief above the law? Is he allowed to dodge such proceedings? What would have happened if the defendants had no-showed? They probably would have been issued a warrant for their arrest. My deepest concern is for the residents of Townsend and how they are already being affected by the gang injunction. The morning after the gang injunction forum, people's cars started getting towed, and they have continued to get towed. Now, for some, this might not be a big deal, but for Townsend, there's so many people there, there's very, very little parking. A lot of the surrounding areas have permits, and they cannot park there. So people struggle when they come home from work to find parking. They cannot find parking, and they run the risk of getting their cars towed, and then that adding more stress to their livelihood. Since the forum, we've seen a lot more officers lingering in the community in their new cars, waiting for anyone to stop. I personally witnessed a young man walking out of his door and a policeman shining the police light in his face for a few minutes, and he just dodged and kept walking. He wasn't doing anything. Just this past Friday, we hosted a movie night with the Townsend families, and as we were leaving to walk the kids out, we saw 2 police cars shining the light on anybody who was visible, on a group of young boys that were just playing with their skateboards, and a group of men, working men, that were sitting around their stairway. They shined the light for a few minutes, and what we heard them say is, "No corras, porque balacean." Don't run because they shoot. Their children observe this from their windows.
Thank you, Vanessa. If you could
Gabriela.
wrap up, it's read. Carolyn, followed by Josie Gloria. Josie Gloria. And after that, Dave Hohen. Carolyn Torres, I believe. Vanessa Cerda. Gabriela Hernandez, and then Vanessa, and then Carolyn.
Well, good evening. My name is Vanessa. I've been here before. I do live in Townsend. You guys are aware of this gang injunction that is in the process. My concern now that I look into it, now that I get more involved with it, is like the roots where the problems start. Lack of resources in like YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs. I know that there's other places where you could encourage these things, and investing this money with the gang injunction, I don't know how much money it's worth, but I know it's worth a lot of money. I think it would be better invested in building a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA near Townsend. I believe I heard that one of these officers, Rodriguez, he was served here. I could recognize his job as well as everybody else did, but I personally had encounters with him where he has harassed me, and I'm not a gang member myself. And I understand that they're doing their job. I'm not a gang member, like I stated again. And I am not going to put up with this anymore. And I'm going to be the voice of Townsend. I am going to speak, and this law is not going to go through. Because if that means that I have to become unity with the other community, the Santa Anita, that already has it, I will. And I will do my own research. I will. And we're not going to allow this gang injunction to happen. No, not one more, not in Santa Ana. If you guys want to do it in Huntington Beach, there's Southside Huntington Beach over there that has gang members as well. Not just Santa Ana, everywhere there's a problem. It's like a virus. Let's address that virus. Let's find the cure for that virus. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now, is it Vanessa now, or Carolyn, and then Josie Gloria, and then Dave Hohen?
Hello, my name is Carolyn Torres. I'm not going to be too long. I just want to ask a series of questions. One is, who benefits from a Townsend gang injunction? What development interests are in the area? Whose political ambitions does this gang injunction serve? Why does the DA continue to dictate what happens in Santa Ana? Why is Chief Rojas avoiding deposition, and what is he hiding? Who on this council knew about the gang injunction before October of 2013? What does this council plan to do about the police harassment towards the Townsend residents? Why did the DA try to convince a judge that the 14 people who have lawyers should not be considered defendants? It's been 8 years. Why is there still a gang injunction in Santa Anita? What does that say about the effectiveness of a gang injunction? Why are the proposed trade centers overlapping the Santa Anita gang injunction? What does that say about the development goals of gang injunctions? Gang injunctions are not effective. Townsend is not a war zone. People are not scared to leave their homes any more than any other neighborhood at night. They are out and about playing loteria, talking, having parties, socializing. Gang injunctions are not the answer to violence. They do not work. I hope you all on the council will consider the answers to the questions that I'm posing, and I hope everybody listening in the audience and at home will consider the answers to the questions that I'm posing. No to a Townsend gang injunction, no to a Santa Anita gang injunction, and no to any gang injunctions in Santana.
Josie Garcia, and then Dave Hohen, and then Steve Rocco.
Good evening, City Council. I live on Esperion Street in Santa Ana. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm in solidarity with the statements that were made about gang injunctions. We don't need more of those in our community. We need more resources. We need to really look at the root of the problem. It's been, repeated, and countless stories say it, and we just need to act correctly for our young brothers and sisters, because we all got a chance, but, where's their chance? And we need to give people more chances. I also want to address the gentleman who spoke first, again, talking about youth and gang members and the reality and how they deserve due process and they deserve resources, because the systems are broken. Our immigration systems are broken. Veterans Affairs systems are broken. Our mental health systems are broken. The biggest mental health facility in America is our prison system still. And so you can create these homeless shelters, but the reality is that people have the need for mental health facility right here, right now. Right here, right now, that's happening. So the systems are broken, and so it's a responsibility to address the issues that come out as a result, and while at the same time working to hit the root of those problems. Which leads me back to the issue of the homeless shelter. You're going to hear a lot of impassioned speeches against the homeless shelter with equal passion as the Councilwoman Martinez showed against dab bars a few weeks back. Can we all just please stop with the fear-mongering? Please. It's enough. Ya basta del miedo, compañeros. I'm going to speak in Spanish porque quiero que hagan aquí. Compañeros, está bien que estemos en contra de los lugares para los homeless, pero hay que decir que qué es la solución. Es bien fácil decir, no quiero esto, pero ¿cuál es la solución? Estamos diciendo que hay gente que va a violar y que no, gente está violando, que está viviendo en nuestras casas ahorita, nuestros familiares, nuestros tíos. Ahorita ya los niños pasan por la Civic Center cada día. ¿Y cuánta gente ha sido violada? Ni una. ¿Cuánta gente ha sido matada? Ni una. Entonces, basta de los líderes y los wannabe políticos que quieren hacer esto y tratar de traer el miedo a las comunidades. Eso nada más trae más confusión y más división. Tenemos que tener unidad. And so, I just want to just really put that in, folks, because it is a time to come together and really get impassioned and get really, not about medical marijuana, but about making Santana a better place and working with a community to make it a better place. Thank you.
Dave Hohen, followed by Steve Rocco, followed by Connie Hamilton.
Good evening, council and staff. A lot of anger here tonight. I hope it's appropriate to talk about something fun for a change. I would like to invite you all to the 13th annual Concert in the Park in Morrison Park up in North Santa Ana. I know most of you, if not all of you, are too young to remember the group The Beatles, but it is but there apparently are enough of us old farts are still around that really like the event, and we've got more interest this year than we've had for any of our concerts in the park. It is the 50th anniversary of the Beatles, And our theme, of course, will be Beatlemania. And as Ed Sullivan would say, we're going to have a really big shoe for you tonight. So, see, I'm an old fart too. So you don't have to have a table, but if you would like to have a table, hurry up and call the number on the flyers that I provided for each of you. And there's more information on the flyer if you'd like that. There's no campaigning and no politicking allowed. In fact, if you try any of that stuff, we're going to hose you down. So none of that stuff, okay?
Dave, can you go over the date for folks at home? Can you just...
Yeah, I will in just a second.
Specifics? Go ahead.
We have a large dance floor, and you can just have eating and have fun eating, schmoozing, grooving, and dancing to the classic rock and roll band, The Answer. And most of you already know they do really put on a good shoe. So come out and have some fun. Beatlemania, 6 to 10 p.m. this Saturday in Morrison Park. And hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Rocco, followed by Connie Hamilton, followed by Peter Katz.
I received 2 letters, and one of them was from your city council about the signage for campaigns. I thought it was kind of funny I received one since I'm not even campaigning in Santa Ana, not for mayor, not for city council. But I am campaigning in Orange, and that's for school board, which I was elected before, and the only way they could get me out was by gerrymandering me. So that's for your signage. I don't care. The other letter I got was from Neil Kelly, and who spoke here about a month ago, and you seem to think that he did a good job. And in the last election of June, where I ran for Records, which is over there, I ran against 2 ghosts. And one of them was this ghost, who doesn't exist. And you can go to the voters registrar and find that out. He doesn't exist. And the number 2 vote getter was Monica Maddox. She doesn't exist. So if you look her up, and there's nobody under that name. So our wonderful Neil Kelly, I cannot run under anything. Ballot designation, not teacher, not writer, not commentator. I'll be the only candidate without a ballot designation according to Neil Kelly. Okay? Scared that I'll win, scared that I'll have signs, scared that I'll campaign. I've been arrested 3 times. But before you judge me too harshly, remember that I was arrested 1, by the president of the Albertsons Corporation. 2, by the president of Chapman University. 3, by Tony Rackauckus and his Orange City detective neighbor. The Albertson Corporation's son got convicted of a felony for drugs and is dead. The Rackauckus' son is a convicted felon of drugs. And Doty's paid-for hit hire man died this year, within the last few months. So I'm going to end. Who's running for mayor is the Eugene Fields, who ran an article about how I wrote some sort of confession letter. And it's been in the paper, it's been on PBS, and so I'm going to offer a $100,000 reward. $100,000. I own a home. I have the money. I will give it to your clerk over here. I will give you all a copy, and if the Register or Rackauckus can come up with that confession letter, with what they said, supposedly I said, I will pay $100,000. If you can't come up with that letter, then Rackauckus is a liar, the Register is a liar, and you're all crooks.
Connie Hamilton, followed by Peter Katz, followed by John Grace.
Good evening, council members, city manager, and city attorney.
Connie, bring it down just a hair. There you go. Just bring it down.
Steve Rocco's too tall, I guess. Anyway, first I want to say, Steve Reiner, are you still here? Did he leave? I wanted to say, we've been waiting for him for a long time, and I'm so glad that Santa Ana is going to have an emergency manager now, especially because Santa Ana Fire used to handle all that. And so now we have an emergency manager. We can get the CERT classes going again. Yay, Michelle. So we're real happy about that. Anyway, we have some announcements for some of the residents of Santa Ana, for the voters and for the candidates. Comlink, Connect to Council, and NeighborWorks Orange County, with support of the Orange County Register, we're going to have a forum and a debate September the 17th at the Rancho Santiago Community College District Boardroom. So, and it'll be from 7 to 9, and it'll be a double feature. It'll be a forum and a debate. Comlink has been presenting the forums for a long time, and then Connect to Council has started with the debates. So it is going to be a forum of the candidates, and then followed by a debate. So it'll be an interesting evening, a double feature. And also, I did want to announce, especially for the businesses in Santa Ana, the Santa Ana Chamber is going to have a forum with a business perspective. And this is going to be October the 2nd, Thursday. It'll also be at the Rancho Santiago District Boardroom, and that'll be from 5:30 to 7:30. And then I also understand that the Youth in Government organization is going to present a Santa Ana Unified School Board candidate, and that'll be a forum. It'll be either the first or second week of October. Stay tuned. And so the forums and the debates are going to be presented for the Santa Ana voters. Just stay tuned, and we're putting it out there for you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Peter Katz, then John Grace.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor, staff, and fellow residents. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming to the 25th anniversary of the Comlink event at the Bowers Museum. It was a wonderful success, and hopefully we can make it a yearly event, and you stayed for the entire event. And so I know you enjoyed yourself, and over 150 neighborhood leaders and residents showed up for that event, and it was the social event of the summer, so thank you very much. But I want to talk tonight about, I attended the Townsend Rate Gang Injunction meeting on the 19th of August. And there's some things concerns me. First of all, I want to congratulate the Chief of Police and Deputy District Attorney Tracy Miller for fielding questions for more than 2.5 hours from the community in an attempt to divest the tension that sits out there in that neighborhood. And I want to thank the host, Immaculate Heart of Mary Church, for hosting it in a safe environment. But more dialogue is needed in this neighborhood. And David, thanks for being there as a member of the council and listening to the concerns of the citizens. Tracy Miller spoke about the GRIP program, but nobody knows that it exists. We need more advertising. This is a wonderful program. It should be at the libraries. It should be in the schools. You heard Gabriela Hernandez earlier, and she said we are not saying there are no gangs or no crime, but we are saying it's not the proper solution. A gang injunction is just a tool in the arsenal of the police department. But unfortunately, sometimes a piece of paper changes the black and white of law enforcement to shades of gray, and that's where we have problems. We need more dialogue in this neighborhood. That one meeting should not be enough. We need ongoing meetings with the community leaders that are not the hotheads. We need to look at the problems in the neighborhood. We need more after-school programs, and we need more involvement by government officials in this neighborhood. We need our law enforcement officers to mix at neighborhood functions out of uniform to get to know the kids that they are not the enemy. And we need to reduce the density in this neighborhood, and we have an opportunity to do that with the harbor specific corridor plan, and you're creating new housing. You can create a system of relocation vouchers to reduce the density in that neighborhood and get a stipend similar to what the city of Garden Grove did in solving the problems with the gangs in the Buena Clinton community. So it can be done. There are government programs that provide necessary funds to reduce density in troubled neighborhoods. So I'm urging this council to reach out, continue the dialogue, help the police continue these meetings, and meet with some of the wonderful people that I met in this neighborhood that want to solve the problems. They don't want the gangs in their neighborhood any more than you or I do. But we need a dialogue, and we need to solve these problems, and we can only do that by working together. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you for your work on Comlink and the neighborhood movement here in the city. John Grace, followed by Elizabeth Lopez, followed by Guy Lopez.
Thank you very much, Mayor John Grace. I've spoken here before. I'm 6232 Larchwood Drive, Huntington Beach. I'm here to speak about the $500,000 expenditure for closing the DAB bars. While I appreciate that the council was responsive to citizens' concerns, I have a lot of concern myself about the way it was handled. It seems to me that by going after ordinary citizens, not business people that are guilty of infractions, what you've done is you've spent the $500,000 in the most frivolous way possible. I believe that by using the kind of SWAT team, kind of military assault policing that you did on that day, that again, all you've done is spent your money in the most expensive way possible to do the least amount of good. All these stores appear to be still open, so I don't know what you've actually spent on this, but it sounds like your prosecution is going to cost even more, because you're pressing them as misdemeanors instead of infractions. So I urge you to spend your money more wisely. Medical marijuana is not your big problem, and use your money for the things where you need to use money for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Guy Lopez, followed by Elizabeth Lopez.
Good evening, Council. My name is Guy Lopez. I'm a Santa Ana resident, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. I'm going to keep it short and simple. I don't agree with the taxes being spent the way they were, and as far as like going out there and doing all these court costs and all this money that's being spent can be used for the homeless, can be used for other things besides that. The medical marijuana, I feel that money can be spent on things that are not frivolously. It feels like it's being wasted, flushed it down the drain, really. I get texts, I'm a patient, I get texts from these collectives, from the DAB bars. They're still open. I walked into a collective, do you want a free DAB with your medicine? And I'm like, no. Walked out. What did it do? Honestly, did you guys even think about it? A collective reopens. Once you send them a letter, they reopen in another spot. You guys really need to organize and get with your city and even your police department. It's ridiculous on how you're spending money. Please spend it somewhere responsible. Thank you.
Elizabeth Lopez.
Okay, hello, I'm Elizabeth Lopez. I live in...
I'm sorry, Sylvia Hernandez, you're on deck. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm a city Santa Ana resident, and I'm also a medical marijuana advocate, and I also own a business here in the city of Santa Ana. I don't agree with your tax money being spent on enforcing a ban on medical cannabis. I feel that your money can be spent somewhere else instead of just continuously, like, when you did that raid, it was totally outrageous. It was outrageous and uncalled for. There was people in the paddy wagon, like, with their heart medicine and stuff. Where's your compassion? Where's your law enforcement compassion? That's what matters. We're human beings. We're allowed to, this is our body. We're allowed to do our own medicine and stuff like that. But that right there was so uncalled for, and it was not nice. How about I go to your house and go raid you? Like, how would you feel? Like, it's not a good feeling. It's not. So all I'm saying is spend the money somewhere where it can get utilized, like the homeless in the city or something else. Because, quite frankly, that's ridiculous. That's it.
Thank you. Sylvia Hernandez, followed by George Rea.
Good evening, City Council members and City Attorney and the City Manager. I'm here, I'm union organizer from the SEIU USWW, And the reason I am here is because on July 15, you approved to the city attorney and the city manager to sign a contract with a non-union contractor. So we are really concerned about these workers. The majority of the janitors, the workers live here in Santa Ana, and we are really concerned about their families and their benefits and wages. I already met, thank you, Michelle, thank you, David Benavides, thank you, Roman. We already talked about it. I'm still waiting for Sal and Vincent and Miguel to talk about it, Angelica. I'm going to leave this business card for you so we can discuss this, and before October 1st, we can fix this problem, and we hope that we can keep these workers with their wages and benefits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jose Rea, or Josie Rea, followed by Susan Sandoval, I believe. Susana, maybe Sandoval. Jose?
Thank you. So, buenas tardes. Let me start by saying that our group, Community United for Environmental Justice, is in full support of the homeless and their needs. We support shelters in appropriate locations that serve the diverse needs of the homeless population effectively. There is a clear push from the media and the politicians to pit our two severely underserved communities against each other. Both the homeless and the residents share the same concerns: lack of inclusion and representation in the decision-making process and in the selection of the shelter at 1217 East Normandy Place. It is very close proximity to Bishop Manor, Minnie Street, Cedar Evergreen, and Lion Streets. Documented contested gang territories where shootings occur in broad daylight in front of Kennedy Elementary. With 7 schools within 15-minute walking distance, Kennedy is only 1.5 blocks away. After decades of investment by the feds, city, state, etc., there is some stability in Cornerstone Village. Why do you want to compound the negative effects of segregating these two poor communities by income? It will bring new forms of instability. That would make the entire east side of the city more unsafe and economically depressed. The city council and the city manager are so obsessed with the gentrification of downtown Santa Ana to attack people from outside the city that you had no second thoughts placing the children of Santa Ana and the homeless at risk. Let's warehouse the homeless out of sight, out of mind. The city council members and city manager played a leading role in rezoning selected areas of the city. We question what is the city getting out of this and who really benefiting from this money changing hands. The property increased from 1.8 million to 3.6 million. Step up to the plate, demonstrate some leadership, and do not pretend you had nothing to do with this. Councilman Sarmiento, I'm surprised by your silence. You voted in favor of the rezoning, and you did not inform the community that most of the properties were in your ward. Mr. Cavazos was actively promoting the purchase of the 1217 East Normandy warehouse at the supervisors meeting on July 15. You should have done your homework, Mr. Cavazos. You had no plan and no adequate answers for the supervisors. The purpose of our group attending the city council meeting is to call on all of you to rescind on your lose-lose proposition. Santa Ana wants to and deserves a win-win proposition. The process should have included all of us in the decision-making, and the community outreach did not start until August 19 at the forum at Kennedy Elementary. All of you should have been there to hear the community concerns at Kennedy Elementary. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. Susana, followed by Irma Rivera, and then followed by Patty McDonald.
Good evening. I'm Susana Sandoval. I've lived in Santa Ana about 25 years. Our homeless population, residents, schools, and businesses deserve better than this. 1217 East Normandy Place is a highly industrialized street with constant heavy-duty traffic, machinery, no sidewalks, no green space, and sandwiched between industrial buildings and businesses. We do not see how a 200-bed emergency shelter with multiple services, mental health, public health, job training, veteran services, parking, a safe play area for sheltered children can fit into this proposed site. A one-stop job as stated by Karen Roper at the supervisors meeting on July 15th. We need to provide our homeless populations with appropriate space to meet the diverse needs and services. A green environment for shelter residents to thrive and to move their lives forward. As our elected officials, you need to engage the homeless population and leadership in the decision-making process. You need to engage the residents, the schools, the businesses. Mr. Cavazos, you stated at the July 15th supervisors meeting that you spoke with neighborhood leaders. You did not speak to the Madison Park Neighborhood Association, East Side leadership that are part of the Santa Ana Healthy Neighborhoods Alliance, the Santa Ana South Main Merchants Associations, Irma Jauregui or other alliance leaders, and other residents in the neighborhoods that we are aware of, or the business owners on Normandy Place. Superintendent Rich Miller spoke at the community forum on August 19th and stated that the Santa Ana Unified School District was not part of the decision-making process. He was informed that it was a done deal. Following the forum, Superintendent Miller wrote a detailed letter to the supervisors opposing the shelter location and copied the City Council. Mr. Cavazos, what neighborhood leaders did you speak with, when, and who gave their approval? Equally disturbing, there is no safety plan in place to protect everyone. I and a select group of residents were invited to a meeting on July 28th from the city manager's office to hear our concerns and input on planning for a subsequent community-wide meeting. City and county staff were there. To our great disappointment, Mr. Cavazos, the city manager was not there, and Councilman Vince Sarmiento was absent. Following the meeting, I requested the minutes. Alma Flores informed us there were no minutes taken from the meeting, but staff will put notes together and forward them to the group. How is it that the city manager is interested in our concerns and minutes were not taken? To this date, more than a month, we never received the notes from that meeting. On August 19th...
Suzanne, if you can please conclude the light's red.
In closing, there is a lack of explanation of benefits for the community and the city. The $3.6 million for the building is beyond comparable buildings in the area. City Council and Mr. Cavazos, your actions are fundamentally disrespectful to the community and are in opposition to the Sunshine Ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irma. Irma, followed by Patty McDonald. And then after that, Dora Lopez.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I don't have a big speech to say, but I'm just here to talk about the homeless shelter that you guys are going to put at Normandy Street. I realize that I have a major concern because my daughter goes to Villa Fundamental School, and as I picked her up today from school, I see the majority of kids walking through Grand Street, and some of them are like cutting through Normandy, and it's a big concern and safety for the kids that all of them, go there. I speak, on behalf of my street where I live by too. I live on Holiday Street. We weren't informed of this shelter being set in Normandy. I don't know if you guys can consider this again, and our kids are the priority, are the number ones that we're supposed to be looking out for. Thank you.
Patty, and then Dora Lopez, and then Irma Jauregui.
Good evening. I've never been to a city council meeting before. This is really amusing.
Thank you.
It is. It's great entertainment. My name is Patty McDonald, and I'm a business owner over in Normandy Place. I started my company in 1987 and have been in the city of Santa Ana for almost 30 years. I own three addresses on Normandy Place. I'm a women-owned business. I started out of my garage. And we've come to Normandy Place where you guys had it was the enterprise zone. So we hired all of our employees through the enterprise zone. They came to work for us, and they're entrenched in the community. They've been with us for over 20 years. They live in the neighborhood. They have children in the neighborhood, and this is where their lives are. Over the years, I want to tell you also that I was never notified of any plan for the shelter. I was never notified as to the zoning change that was going to allow the shelter to be built. And I read about this in the Orange County Register. Now, I could understand if you missed one of my properties, but to miss all three of them right across the street, I'm not sure who got notified. Over the years, I have employed many homeless people, recovering alcohol abusers, drug abusers, and gang members. I have also participated in donating and raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for our transitional homeless shelter here in Santa Ana Wise Place. My name is on the wall over there for donors. And I sat and had dinner with no less than 20 homeless women last week over there. I have also raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for abused and homeless children of Child Help. I am not against the homeless. I want them to have the best accommodation that my tax dollars will buy. And a warehouse in the middle of a commercial neighborhood is not where I want to spend my money for people to recover. Over the years, the city, Safety Co has been a good partner for the city over these years. Why would the city want to lose the revenue of the businesses on Normandy Place when most people would probably have to relocate to go to a different city? It would not be safe for the homeless to be lined up in front of that building where businesses are loading and unloading, UPS trucks, FedEx trucks. The mail lady...
Patty, if you could conclude, the light's gone red.
Okay. I would like to ask you to reconsider your decision, not only for the business, but for the community as a whole. The neighborhoods who have struggled diligently under the control, they have gotten out of the control of the drug pushers and the rivaling gangs, and the neighborhood has really spruced up over the years. I'd like to just say, please reconsider this.
It's your first meeting, but you're a pretty good speaker, and
well, thank you.
You're
I
making
wrote it
your
all
point.
down, and
You
I'm
wrote it all
glad
down.
to be here.
Okay.
Nice
Thank
to meet
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Sarmiento, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I think this would be an appropriate time to ask one of our staff members to explain.
Go
that
ahead,
this-
because
that the
we've had a lot of
discretion
speakers on this item.
I think there might be some inaccuracies, I think, and there might be some misrepresentation. So I'm not sure if our Director of Planning might come up and explain where we are in the process. A lot of the speakers are misinformed that they believe that this body has a discretion and the authority to decide site selection. That's not the case. So we'd like to have that clarified, if you don't mind, Ms. Haluza, to explain what the process actually lays out and what the City Council has, if any, decision-making on this issue.
With all due respect, there is a policy of how these meetings are conducted. I am next in line as a speaker, and I demand that my right to
Feel free to speak.
Look, let's everybody be respectful here, and for folks out in the audience, I know you feel very strongly. If you could go like this instead of clapping, it's more respectful. Thank you.
Ms. Haluza, why don't we go ahead and let the speaker come before
Everybody
us?
will get to speak. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dora Lopez, and then Irma Jauregui. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Dora Lopez. I'm sure I'm not your person you pray at night right now, but I apologize for that. Everybody's talked about the shelter.
I'm here to talk about ethics and mission. The City of Santa Ana Code of Ethics and Conduct, adopted June 2, 2008, which is in the back of the agenda item, first page. Attitude, words, and actions should demonstrate, support, and reflect the following qualities and characteristics for the well-being of our community. The 5 core values and expressions that reflect these core values are as follows: integrity and honesty. Number 2, responsibility, protecting the public interest. Number 3, fairness and accountability, which states, I promote meaningful public involvement in the agency's decision-making processes. Number 4, respect for fellow elected or appointed officials, staff, and the public. I treat my fellow officials, staff, and the public with patience, courtesy, and civility, even when we disagree on what is best for the community. We have not gotten that. Number 5, proper and efficient use of public resources. I am a prudent steward of public resources and actively consider the impact of the decisions on the financial and social stability of the city and its residents. The cost of this building does not back up this. Your mission statement under the 5 strategic year plan, 2014 to 2019, vision, mission, and guiding principles. Mission, to deliver efficient public services in partnership with our community, which ensure public safety, a prosperous economy environment, opportunity for the youth, and the high quality of life for residents. We as a community should not be doing your job. We have responsibilities, jobs, families. My dad died a month ago, and I have not had the time to mourn him because I have been involved in this movement. That shouldn't be. We voted you into your positions so that you can safeguard our interests and our rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora. Irma, followed by Karen Drafton.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Cavazos. I come here out of a huge concern because not communicating to us is so disrespectful and unprofessional. This whole project with such a lack of communication and transparency to the homeless, they were not included in the planning. They've got so many needs. They're vulnerable, their population, the children, the abused women, youths, veterans, seniors. Some have drug addiction, a smaller group of mental illness. They need care. The businesses, they were not properly informed of the zoning and the effect the whole thing would have. The Board of Education and their concerns for their students and how to help the homeless children, because they do have a homeless population. All the residents, the apartment dwellers, the townhomes, we're not pitted against each other. We do care for them. This is a very complex issue because so many sectors are combined and affected, and they can be affected either positively or negatively. So looking at the existing layers is paramount to have them in consideration. So the proposed project, whether it's Normandy or another place, that needs to be looked at first. How are you going to combine them? Will businesses and employment be lost? Will they relocate? Will the businesses close and go outside of our communities? They're the backbone of society. Society gets income for businesses and taxes for all the government programs. And so we want our tax dollars to be used wisely. So that area needs to be looked at. The neighborhoods, are they presently stable? What effect it will have? Will there be continued stability and quality of life with a new element coming in? Will it be in conflict? We have to look at that. Are there elements now that are negative and at risk? How will that happen? Is the community engaged, and are we called? Everybody has my cell phone, it's public. Are there elements now that are at risk? Let's look at existing models, smaller projects, different locations, so residents and businesses can help and support each other. We can reintegrate those that we can. We heard that wonderful lady, very fluent, so they can reintegrate into society and have a home and go to work. This requires different models. One size fits all in a warehouse is not the answer. We need to come together in good faith to be transparent and willing to work. You took an oath. Please honor that oath. The oath is to serve the community, to care for our well-being. So we ask you, do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Irma, before I call the next speaker, Karen, maybe come up for a moment. I don't know that, how much this will clarify, but this is really being driven by the county and not by the city. But not to say that we can't get more involved and try to do more than we have, but I think it's important that we get the process clear, because I think right now there's some big assumptions that are not accurate. Please, Karen.
Sure, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The situation that we find ourselves in right now really began when the state adopted Senate Bill 2, which required all cities in the state of California to zone land where emergency shelters, homeless shelters, can be allowed by right, which means they have to be allowed without any additional discretionary process that the city might otherwise have for some other sort of use. The city did establish that zoning. The council adopted that almost a year ago today. And that went through an almost year-and-a-half process prior to that. And as the former speaker noted, there was extensive outreach and involvement in the drafting of the ordinance itself from members of all of the homeless services community, all of those that are serving the homeless today and that provide shelters here and in other places. There was extensive research done on best practices in other cities and shelter ordinances in those cities, many visits and outreach to those other cities and their shelters. So there was about a year-and-a-half effort that went into developing the ordinance that was then adopted by the city. The county then, in an effort to replace the shelters that are currently being served by the armories here in Santa Ana and Fullerton, began a search for properties that they could use as this replacement emergency shelters. They are looking to find those facilities within places where the land has already been zoned, and in Santa Ana, those happen to be in some areas that are industrial. I also would we will outreach to the business owner who was here this evening. We did hold industrial property owners forums prior to the adoption of the ordinance, so we will outreach to her to make sure that we can understand what her issues are and where we might have involved her as well. So in a nutshell, we were required by the state to zone this property this way. The county is now trying to find a shelter location, and they are looking to do that within areas that have already been zoned for such.
Councilor Sarmiento, would you like to add something
Just
to that?
a quick question. I mean, I guess what's unclear where the disconnect is that who made the site selection? Did this body make the site selection, or did the county?
No, the County of Orange made the site selection.
Who was responsible for the outreach to the community?
For the
forum, the community
for the
forum.
purchase of the building,
Right.
that would have been the County of Orange.
Okay. Who's going to have the ultimate decision now? Because that property hasn't been acquired by the county yet. It's still in its due diligence period, correct?
That's correct, and the final purchase will be approved by the Orange County Board of Supervisors.
Okay. I think all those things, and I think all of us realize that the outreach that they did was insufficient. It was done on July 2nd, 2 days before a long holiday weekend. Notice was only given to property owners, and the residents, I believe, only had 3 days' notice to actually know that this forum was going forward. A lot of us didn't. I'm not sure. I guess when was this body informed about the site location?
The actual address wasn't released to the public until the agenda packet was being prepared for the Board of Supervisors.
What date was that?
That was just a couple of days before the meeting, so it would have just been. Sorry.
Okay. Did this city council know before that date?
The
what
actual
site
address,
location?
no.
Okay, so we found out when the public found out, correct?
About the actual address. The forum that was held prior to the supervisors meeting only identified a general location as being in the area near Normandy School.
And just for full disclosure, I met with Supervisor Nguyen on Thursday because I had spoken to one of the speakers earlier, Mr. Rea, and he had wanted to invite the supervisor and the other board of supervisors to do a walkthrough of the site, just to see what the proximity was to the neighborhood and to some of the schools. I met with her last Thursday. She said that she wasn't going to be able to go, that she would send her staff, and she wasn't going to be
Please
present.
respect.
I'm just disclosing what the response was from her, because I wanted to relay the message on behalf of the neighborhood. And specifically, I had spoken to other members of Cornerstone who reside actually right next to the shelter. Mr. Rea doesn't live in the area. He lives in Madison Park, which is much further away. But one of the things I should let you know is that after that meeting, I sent a letter directed to the chairperson of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Nelson, and I told Mr. Nelson that I could not support the site selection that they made, based upon the response that I saw at the August 19th meeting. So, Mr. Rea, Susana, Irma, you have to get your facts straight as well. You have to realize that this body didn't have any more notice than the public did about the site. And so many of us are in agreement with you. The outreach was insufficient, the site selection may not be the correct one, and there wasn't sufficient public engagement. So what I asked them to do in a letter that I drafted and was sent to them was to reconsider the site selection. And thank you, Miss, the business owner, for the same reasons that she cited. There was insufficient notice that may not be the right capacity for what the services need to be delivered, because we do have a responsibility to the homeless population. I think all of us do. I think we're mandated to do it, whether or not we have a moral obligation or not. We're required to do it because of Senate Bill 2. Nonetheless, we did it because we know it's the responsible thing to do. Whether or not other cities in the county are doing it, we thought it was important for us to address that question. Now, the process begins with the community and us, because we don't have that ultimate say. We don't have the decision. We don't have the final decision to make certain that that selection is going to be the final selection. So now is where the opportunity for all of us to address the Board of Supervisors, because they have the ultimate vote on this, not the City Council. I think a lot of what you're saying we're in agreement with. Unfortunately, the process is so confused and that you're before the wrong body. I think the Board of Supervisors need to hear the same things that you're addressing to us. Again, I tried to encapsulate what I've heard from you and what I heard at the August 19th meeting in a letter. And it was copied to all of you earlier this afternoon. And it was addressed to Chairman Nelson on August 28th. So if you'd like a copy, I'll be happy to go ahead and share it with you. But you really need to get your facts straight. I think if you want to address and change the site selection, go before the right body. Use us as advocates. We're happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. I'm sure a lot of people in this room would be happy to do it. But you have to make sure that you're addressing the right body. And right now, quite frankly, you're just not before the right decision-making body. We'd love to have that discretion. We just don't have it.
No.
Mayor and council members, I just want to remind
please.
you that under the terms of the Brown Act, we are still in the public comment portion, so I just want to make sure we finished up all public comment.
We have a few more.
You can respond to questions and issues, but you can't have such a long discussion as if the item were agendized.
Got it. Karen
We need to move on to
Drafton,
agendized issues.
followed by Cynthia Perez, followed by Lonnie Haynes. No, Larry Haynes, your penmanship, Larry.
Evening, I was unexpectedly to speak here this evening, but I'm going to, in behalf of the elderly that is homeless, sick mostly. I was brought up Native American, and I was taught that my freedom was sleeping, my necessity in life was sleeping, eating, and bathing. I have a sick, terminal husband that has been bashed by people through a tent. He has had seizures, he has had strokes. I'm his wife, also his caregiver. I am a professional, I am not ignorant. And when I came to your city 5 months ago, all I have seen out of Santa Ana is homelessness. I have not seen compassion. And the only two people that gave me compassion was two officers when I first got on the Civic Center. They are still working with me. I also met the Round Table, which is also working with me, and they gave me great compassion. But there is something wrong here, that there's something wrong with Santa Ana, because I know you have a great deal to live with or accept here. You're not just dealing with homeless, you're dealing with people that are from out of state, that are homeless, out of jails, so you have a lot to deal with. But the point is, there's something wrong in what you're doing to help us all. And to give us tickets for sleeping or not being able to bathe, that's trying to take our dignity away. And that's one thing as an American native you will never do with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia Perez, followed by Larry Haynes.
All right. I'm going to talk in Spanish and English out of respect. You can turn it around, David.
All right, so as you can see, this is the more than first time that Mayor Polito leaves. La última vez no nos estaba viendo. Last time he was here, he wasn't looking at our face, he was looking down. Exactly like you guys. If you guys honestly help our community, that's awesome, but honestly, as a whole, I am disgusted with this group. So I'm gonna talk to my community. We need to have them held accountable for not acknowledging the honest and brutality that the police, that law enforcement, city officials, city members are obligated to do, even if they don't want to, and being brutal to homelessness, to the youth, to people that are struggling. We need to help our homeless brothers and sisters because one day we're going to be there. If we don't acknowledge that there's gentrification, they call it urban development. And I have talked to Karen. Karen's the only person from the city that has actually taken the time to meet with me. Michelle Martinez canceled on my sister, and Mayor Polito es un pinche cabrón. 20 años, since I've been 2 years old, he's been in that chair. What the heck is going on? And this is our responsibility.
Cynthia, I just have to
This is our
ask, because it is
responsibility.
televised, not to curse. I understand you're
Okay,
passionate,
well, es un cabrón.
but
All right, so.
I can't have
Okay,
that.
he's a politically bribed individual that has put the city and money and businesses before the people that are here. Sepan todos, everybody know, if you live in a house, if you own business, if you live on the street, if you are part of Santana, you are going to be discriminated, economically discriminated, displaced, and ignored. I will continue coming. I will get harassed by the police. I live in a gang injunction area. More people have died since that's happened in the past 20 years since it started. Like, things have started. Hoods have been have been bad, but our families understand what safety is. Who better than a family to bring safety? I'm turning my back on them because they've turned their backs on us. Si no saben, por favor, gente, tenga diálogo, have dialogue. If you want to help out with the homeless and our brothers and sisters, Massimo's there. Talk to us tonight. If you want to talk about culture and music and art, talk to any of us that are part of Centro. We are an environment that's open to every culture, that acknowledges the needs. And as well,
Thank you, Ms. Perez.
the
If you could
homeless,
just wrap up.
he left. Until he comes back, I'm gonna be here. Until he comes back.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker is Larry Haynes. Larry? Is Larry here? Thank you, ma'am. We've heard you. Thank you. You've had your opportunity to speak. She's already had her opportunity to speak. Okay. Larry, please come on up. We need to keep order in here. No, please. No, you have had your time. Thank you. Mr. Larry, Larry Hannes, can you please come up? You have a microphone, sir. You'll be heard. No, we're going to wait till we move around. We need to go on to the next speaker. Larry?
Is Larry not here?
Whew. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Larry Haynes. I am approaching my 25th year of being the Executive Director of Mercy House and my 25th year of operating homeless shelter and housing programs and services to the poor and the homeless throughout Orange County, Riverside, and San Bernardino as well. And central to all that we've ever done is to be a good neighbor. I've sat on 2 neighborhood association boards, have been involved on every level that we could in the neighborhoods that we're involved in. We understand a good neighbor policy. I'm the father of 2 daughters of my own, one in high school and one in elementary school. We understand, I have a keen understanding, especially given the last almost quarter of a century, the importance of our association movement in the city of Santa Ana and the pride therein. What I do want to say, though, in all the years of doing this, and I think we are up to, I believe, 18 different facilities now, several more that are under our control, several more that we work with that we have some sort of partnership agreement. In the quarter of a century of doing this, in all the various locations, I don't think there's ever been one time when we haven't met similar oppositions to what we're facing by the neighbors at the proposed site of Normandy. I understand it. I get it completely. I get it as a father. I get it as a homeowner. I get it as a business operator. I completely understand. I was at the Kennedy Elementary School Community Forum. I was there. I heard all of that. I completely get it. But I have to say, council, this is not unusual. I've had death threats from good neighbors simply wanting to protect their homes because of the sites that we've developed here in Santa Ana. Death threats. I understand. And I'm sure there will be more because of this. That's okay. That's okay. And what happens is that when we in fact start operating, things go well. Much better than anticipated. What I do want to suggest is that there is a way to manage and operate such a facility that can meet all of our needs, that can be safe, that can be respectful of the neighborhood and local businesses, that can encounter their values, that can give them an element of control in how it's run and operated, and can also provide the humane service that so many people have been clamoring for the homeless tonight. But it is, if I may, allow me one snarky comment, it is one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to do it. It's another thing to do it for the 25 years that I've done it. I understand my time is up, but if I may, I had to inherit a bit here. I simply want to offer myself as a resource to the City Council and the City staff to make sure that this is done properly. And I do want to echo the comments that was made by Council earlier. This is not the City Council's fault. To those who are watching and those who are listening, this is not a Council decision. And if you should be frustrated, it should be with someone like me. I should be your target, not the Council, because SB 2 is passed because of advocates like me. And I am willing to accept the consequences of that.
Thank you,
I am willing
Larry.
to talk to anybody who will listen.
Thank you, Larry. Cynthia Perez, followed by Madeline Spencer. She already spoke, sorry. Madeline, are you here?
But you weren't here. You weren't here. And actually talked about
No, but you spoke to the rest
so I
of the
would-
council,
I would-
sorry. Thank you, though. Madeline, and then Douglas Landsfear. Madeline, why don't you go, and then Douglas Landsfear.
Good evening, council, city manager, city staff. Tonight I just want to tell a 3-minute story. Once upon a time, almost a year ago today, a group of community residents came to this council and made a request. The request was that the city look into implementing a community visioning process to look with residents, businesses, schools, nonprofits, and at the myriad problems of the city to come up with solutions that would allow us as a whole to participate in designing a greater vision for Santa Ana. Unfortunately, at the time, the community was in a state of transition. We had one city manager who was fired, we had an interim city manager, and we were going through the hiring of a new city manager. Hence, city officials decided against this sort of process and went ahead, after much resistance from community and pressure, to at least allow us to have 3 forums to set community priorities for our first strategic planning, which was successfully achieved and is now in place and wonderfully translated into 3 languages for all our residents. Thank you. The question today is to ask why you think that this early community request, which has not been accomplished, was felt to be so important. Collaborative design processes are being used successfully in cities all over the nation. Cities are raising awareness about the importance of designing community restoration and revitalization projects. Through collaborative design, communities learn to make the most of the scarce resources, engage stakeholders across jurisdictions, and get projects funded and built, and strengthen community and resident engagement and participation at the same time. Recently, I was at Kennedy Elementary. At Kennedy Elementary, I was surprised to see community leaders, business leaders, the school board, the superintendent of schools, and 4 council members. I think that's the first time that I've seen all of those groups in the same room. And wouldn't it be great to have said that that was because of a community design process that actually came together to actually design where we should put the homeless shelter in our city? But that's not what it was. It was people reacting because they felt unincluded. I've been following, I know that it's not Larry Haynes' fault, that in the federal government, we have people who actually did a process in HUD where they actually decided to do this collaborative process to bring across our nation people together to actually end homelessness, to make strategies all over the United States of America. So we have a 10-year plan to end homelessness here that's been asked for by the federal government. The state alignment with that program has allowed for SB 2 to be here. And now there's this one last point, and we're on track 4 years. We need a shelter, and it's going to happen now.
Please.
The point is, we need not to be the weakest link at this level. Let's get our community together. Let's have that visioning process.
Thank you.
Let's make a better city.
Thank you. Douglas Lanfear, please.
Good evening, City Council, City Manager, Mayor, City Attorney. I commend you very much on bringing this council back into order. It pertains to the Brown Act. This is a time for public comment. It's not a time for the council to address the public. You have a place in the council's agenda, which is 90B, which is your time to address the public on your comments. So what it brings and it illustrates to the public is this council's tenacity and tendency to go out of order. And what I bring that most to the attention of tonight is, in your agenda you have a work study session that will address the medical marijuana dispensary enforcement plan. However, back in August, you tentatively appropriated $500,000 to an enforcement plan. That was done as a knee-jerk reaction, and I commend Michelle Martinez for trying to bring forth a plan or something to stem the tide of the abhorrent behavior on behalf of many storefronts that have proliferated throughout the city. But these things need to be done with a certain amount of forethought, planning, and execution. And what's not being done by this council, and it's been demonstrated through many of the items that have been brought before the council tonight, is that that is not being taken into account on behalf of the community. The community, as I go out and do my outreach to the community in the last several months, has been constantly crying out that they are ignored. They have total council apathy towards their wishes, towards the way that they want their neighborhoods run. You were all elected into these positions to represent the wards within this city. And I do not see from the community outreach that I've been doing for the last several months that that is occurring to this date. I did have a very beneficial meeting today with Chief Rojas and one of his commanders, and I thank him very much for that meeting. I brought to his attention other methodologies to abate the medical marijuana dispensaries that are unlicensed within the city that would be a zero cost to the city. So $500,000 is not needed. $1 million from the taxation under your initiative is not needed. There are other alternatives that this city has not taken into account of how to deal with this. And the reason is because you're not including in your discussions advocates and professionals that have dealt with these issues for decades, such as myself. I've had only one meeting with one city council member out of all that I've sent emails to on this dais, and that's Michelle Martinez. And again, I commend her for conducting that meeting, and I commend the chief again for doing the same. I will be reaching out to Ms. Cavallo to discuss the same parameters of what I've discussed with the chief. So I would hope, as with my previous emails that I've sent to her, that she would take the time to respond this time. So I'll leave it at this, my speaking, and yield to the next speaker. But I do appreciate that the council start to take into account a little bit more consideration of their community members and what they need from you as council members.
Thank you. So with that, we are now going to go into a consent calendar, and I would turn our attention to the consent calendar itself and see if there are any items that folks want to either pull or abstain on.
I'd like to pull item 31C.
31C by Mayor Pro Tem Tinajero. If Madam Clerk, if you could note that.
Mr. Mayor, if you could pull 20A, and I'm going to be abstaining on 25N as in Nancy. I received a campaign contribution from one of the advocates on that issue.
So 25N is in Nancy. There's an abstention by Councilor Sarmiento.
Mayor, what item
Yes,
did
please.
Mayor Pro Tem Tinajero pull?
31C.
Could I pull 31A, please?
31A like apple.
Correct.
Any other items, council members? Any other?
28 was pulled already, right?
28,
20
yes.
was pulled. Okay. No.
Yes, Councilman Reyna.
10A, I'm going to abstain. I wasn't present for that meeting. And I'd like to pull 25A.
25A is an apple. Any other items?
I'll move the balance, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Madam Clerk, would 28 be which one was the 28? And that was Mayor Pro Tem, I believe, or who was that? Councilor Sarmiento?
That was me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. On that matter, that is the appropriation adjustment for the medical marijuana enforcement plan. I know we have later in the calendar a work study session on this agenda matter, so I'd like to see if my colleagues will indulge me to put this over. I think we'd have a much richer, more thoughtful conversation if we have our work study session first. Maybe we can revisit this item on the following calendar in 2 weeks or in 30 days. So it's a
I'll
motion.
second that.
All right, that's a motion. Those in
Aye.
favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute, but we have a question. Sorry, go ahead. Question first.
Just a question for City Manager. Does that impact at all any of the work that's currently being done by City Attorney's Office, Police Department? Does a 2-week continuance? Because that's what's on motion on the table, right? 2-week continuance. Does that impact anything?
2 weeks is acceptable to city management.
Thank you.
So with that, is there any opposition? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, is 25A the next one? And I believe that was Councilman Reyna. Please go ahead.
Mostly just a comment. You know, I think this is a fantastic opportunity here to take advantage of. This is one of the last true family-oriented destinations that we have in the city, and that's the zoo. And we're the only city in the county that really, truly have a zoo. And I look forward to expanding it as much as we possibly can, and just really eager to see this joint use work together. And residents, again, I encourage you to come and visit the zoo as much as you possibly can. It really is one of our jewels in our community for a family-oriented destination, and I just thought it was real important that we'd mention that. I move the item.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Is 25N the next one, or which one? Okay. 31A, who had that one?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this item out, and the reason being is that I'm not going to be able to support 31A. One, I do support the alcohol license, but I cannot support the after hours of operation on this or 31C when it comes before us. As we move forward in the downtown, and I know change is not easy, but we need to have balance here. We need to, be very strategic in how we move forward. And at this time, time, we're dealing with some serious issues as it pertains to parking and what we do with our parking structures and with parking management, period. We have a lot of residential within our downtown, in particular the Lacey neighborhood, where they continuously call me in regards to issues involving folks parking in their neighborhood, leaving at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and now wanting to expand this to 4 a.m. in the morning for certain establishments. I cannot support this at this time because we really need to be very strategic as we move forward. And again, it is unfair for the residents in that neighborhood to really incur a lot of issues as it pertains to establishments being open at 4 a.m.
More a comment on this item? Any questions, thoughts? Mayor Pro Tem?
Excuse me.
All right, he's going to sneeze. Anybody to the left?
Yeah, Mayor,
Councilmember Benavides?
I have some questions for Planning Director. I know the Planning Commission went through the process of vetting this item. I want to get some feedback, if you can provide for some feedback on what was discussed there.
Sure.
And this planning staff's recommendation as well.
31A is for a liquor license and after-hours permit for Last Call on Broadway. Their request for after-hours was to close at 2 a.m. And for the restaurants, the vast majority of restaurants in the city and in the downtown who requested after-hours permits, 2 a.m. is generally the maximum that they've requested. The after-hours conditional use permit that's offered by the city actually doesn't have a specified closing time. It addresses any business that wishes to be open after midnight and before 6 a.m. In general, we do find that with liquor licenses, they do request a closing time, either midnight or 2 a.m., and then that is placed as one of the conditions. We have 2 that have requested 4 a.m., one which was Worst House, which was approved a couple of months ago, and then this latest Spurgeon Social, which is also requesting until 4 a.m., and which was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission.
The item that we're discussing right now is 31A, which you're saying is not requesting later than 2 a.m.
That's correct.
closing. With that, I'd like to move the item.
All right, so you made a motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Not or we would jump at once here.
I think there's still some confusion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Ms. Halusa, if you would come back up, I apologize for not hitting the button quick enough, but
31.
I think Councilmember makes a good point. Is this different than 31C? Because I saw that there was an after-hours request on 31C, so these aren't 2 applications that are similar for after-hours requests. This one is a standard.
They each have a request for an after-hours permit.
But this is to 2 a.m., not 4
31A is until 2 a.m.
Okay. And can you tell us what the general, not rule, but what's sort of the majority of the businesses in the downtown, how late do they stay open?
The majority of them who have after-hours permits requested closing times of 2 a.m. And that usually ties with the state's requirement that you may not sell alcohol after 2 a.m. And so it's their general business practice to request closure at 2 a.m. We have had 2 that have been approved to go after 2 a.m. One was the Velvet Lounge, and this has been a year and maybe 2 years ago now. And then most recently, another restaurant called Worst House, and they did request to be open till 4 a.m., and that was approved.
And that request came before this council?
It did. It came before the Planning Commission as a conditional use permit. They recommended approval. It was confirmed by the City Council.
Okay. You know, that one must have gone, I don't know, I'm not even sure if I was present at that meeting or not, but I know that the issue of going to, and maybe this is the wrong item to be talking about, because we should just go to 31C if we do that one.
There was a motion on the floor, our second for 31A.
31A, correct?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye.
No.
Those opposed?
No.
1 no, motion carries. Now let's go to 31B, where you did earlier, so now I believe it's 31C, Madam Clerk? Who wanted to pull that?
That was my
Please
item.
go ahead.
So now we want to go back to this item and find out what was it that prompted the Planning Commission or staff to come forward with is this one trying to stay open until 4 a.m.?
Yes, their request was for after hours to stay open until 4 a.m.
And what is it about them that gives them the In other words, what do they do that's different that allows them to stay open till 4 a.m.?
It's just their business model. It's their request. They wish to continue serving food past when alcohol can be served, and they see themselves as a late-night eatery. It's just part of their business model.
Okay, I need to oppose that, so I don't know if anyone else has comment.
I'd like to make comment, Mayor.
Please go ahead, Councilor Benavides.
One of the things, well, I don't know if you would have some of this information, Karen, but we have several 24-hour venues in the city, Norm's, Denny's, a couple that come to mind to me. Imagine there's a few others out there, although not much of a selection, not very many, basically. So here what we have, we recognize the downtown as and we've celebrated it as a destination place, place where we have numerous restaurants that are opening up, people that are investing in the city, providing for some, frankly, I think we should have some 24-hour places within the downtown area. We're talking about bringing a hotel into town. It's a type of place that, the type of venues and options that you want to be able to have at a destination type of place. If we're celebrating that, we're encouraging that. Here you have one restaurant that's looking to provide food, place for people to congregate, gather, spend a few more hours, and a few more dollars after most other places have shut down. I see it as a positive thing. And one of the things, it seems like some of the concern that some folks might have is because of the alcohol, or this idea that there would be alcohol served. It seems to me counterintuitive to oppose something that would actually allow for people who have had a few drinks that evening to actually spend a few more hours to have some food in their stomach, relax a little bit, and get, if they're going to drive home, make sure to do that after a couple of hours after having perhaps had their last drink. So it seems to be actually a safer thing for us to support. Something, again, that would provide for a couple of hours of more business and for people to be able to sit and sober up, frankly. So I think that it's actually something that would benefit our community, our streets, and I would be supporting this item and would like to move the item.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Sarmiento, please.
Thank you, and I guess I'll continue my comments from 31A now to 31C. I think I'm having a moment of deja vu because I believe we had this conversation when the request for a 4 a.m. Limit came before us maybe over a year ago when we were talking about the entertainment ordinance, maybe if memory serves. And I think this body had a pretty thorough, open-ended conversation about whether it was a good idea or not. And I believe it was voted down. And I think there was some very good information. And from reading the RFCA, it looks like the police showed that the downtown area has 25% more calls for service than the rest of the city. And I know that the analysis goes on to say that there are conditions here that can address some of the concerns. But what we have to realize is something I think that Councilmember Martinez said. She represents this ward and the where the downtown is located, and it's a mixed-use area. It's not simply commercial or retail. You have live-work lofts, you have single-family residences, you have multifamily residences embedded in this downtown. And so we have to be sensitive to those people who live there. It's not just about alcohol, it's simply about having continuous impacts by people who are visiting these restaurants, whether or not they have alcohol or whether or not they just go and have a bite to eat. That's more noise impact, that's more impact by people parking, traffic, noise from vehicles, all those things. And I think, 2 a.m. is certainly something that all of us have been able to enjoy. And I think, again, it's a slippery slope argument. If we're going to be granting these folks, whether or not their business model is till 4 a.m. or not, I think all the businesses should be open till 4 a.m. Then that's the standard that we're setting. I think if we grant it for this one, it should be granted for all. And I don't know if that's where we want to go. That's unfortunately where we'd have to go because fairness dictates that we shouldn't selectively assist this business in having extended hours if others aren't going to enjoy that same benefit. So I think we made a conscious decision before not to go down this path and to take it very slowly. We're introducing liquor license after liquor license, opening business after business, and we still don't know what that ultimate impact is going to be. So I think before we take this next step of extending hours beyond 2 a.m., I think we should maybe pause and say, let's grant it, let's look at the impacts. If things work well, then maybe we can revisit this issue. But right now, to grant it right in the middle of us processing so many ABC licenses and other licenses just to open up in the downtown is probably not prudent, because I think we should look at what the impact is going to be, and maybe the chief can help us with some of the numbers. Have they increased? Are we expending more resources? Because we have a perfect example in the city of Fullerton. They moved way too quickly, granted way too many licenses, and look at what they had to deal with in the end. So I think right now, let's be prudent, let's be business friendly, and let these folks open up and give their best effort in being successful. But let's not grant them something that we are going to live to regret later on.
They will not be allowed to have entertainment, Pat. They've not yet applied for an entertainment permit, but as you noted, the entertainment permit does not allow entertainment past 2 a.m. So it's only food service.
May I ask Councilmember Sarmiento if he'd like to make an subsequent
Or an
motion?
amended motion?
An amended motion to allow
My
them-
substitute motion would be that we grant the request by the applicant only till 2 a.m.
I'll second that.
I thought you were going to move that all venues be open till 4 a.m. I was going to second that motion.
We're going to have to stay awake for a lot longer before I can.
Councilor Martinez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I live in the downtown. I live at the Artist Village Apartments, and so, you know, I'm extremely supportive. I may not go out to the establishments and enjoy, you know, because I get up at 3 o'clock every morning, so I don't have the time to go out at night. I have to get to bed. But anyhow, you know, there's been progress in the downtown, and there's been vast change within the downtown as well, where people are supportive and people are in opposition. I've been extremely supportive of what has happened in the downtown, but I have taken a pause as I walk with our city manager, and as I continue repeatedly to be getting emails, phone calls, Facebook messages from the loft owners, from residents inquiring about a number one issue that we need to think about, and that's the parking situation that is occurring in the downtown. We don't have the appropriate parking structure and management system that we need to accommodate the amount of alcohol licenses and restaurants that we have coming into the downtown. The number one complaint that we've received has been issues as it pertains to parking. We have to deal with this issue first, and our city manager has made that a top priority, is to deal with our wayfinding and our parking. And I truly believe that when we deal with those two issues, it will make things much easier in our downtown, not only for the patrons, but for the business owners and the people that live in the downtown. At this moment in time, it is very chaotic at times. Folks trying to, you know, find parking, they're parking in the wrong places, they're getting told. It just, they don't know where the parking structures are. It's just a whole mess. You have loft owners that live in the downtown, and certainly they knew they were coming to a very urban downtown, you know, but they didn't realize there was going to be such an influx. I think when many of them came 5-6 years ago, it was still kind of a sleepy downtown. It wasn't that exciting. And, you know, I received emails today, and they're saying, you know, hey, you know, what's going on? You know, I have issues with parking. People are parking in front of my loft. And, you know, I say to them as well, look, you wanted to move into the downtown, and with living in an urban downtown, there's always going to be loud noises and cars going by. And so, but at the same token, we need to make sure that we're able to support and accommodate what's coming into the downtown. And I truly believe that we're not ready. And so I can't support this at this given time, and I'll support the substitute motion.
All right, any additional comment?
Well,
Please, go ahead.
I will be supporting the substitute motion, and I think given that this is Councilwoman Martinez's ward, I think, you know, she gets all the emails. She knows what's going on, so I think I will defer to her for this, and I will be supporting the substitute motion as well.
I'm just wondering, as we do this, should we potentially somehow let others know, because we do have a lot of other applicants that are coming down the pipe, and I do think that it's prudent to sit back a little bit and say, let's understand what we're doing, certainly relative to the additional hours. So I know, maybe through staff or some other way we can communicate with folks.
Through staff.
Any thoughts, Councilor Armiento? You
Well, I know I
began
mentioned
the discussion.
I approached Councilmember Benavides because I know that we've had this conversation before. I'm not saying there never will be a time for this. I just think right now it's premature. So maybe
the next 6 months or so, we take a look at this issue.
Well, 6 months I think is a little short. I think, again, we're talking about parking, we're talking about noise impacts, we're talking about other potential residential opportunities. Why don't we give it at least a year, and let's see where we are in a year? And maybe at that point...
It might be longer. By the time you address the parking issue and all that, it's going to be longer than a year.
But we're not in a race. We're not in a race here. I mean, there's nothing...
And I agree with that. I agree. It's easy to slide backwards. It's very difficult to go forwards. And if we're giving some of these permits and then we can't control it, we're making a lot of issues and a lot of headache here. So with that, we have a motion before us. Everybody's clear on the motion? Those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So with that, let's go on to the next item. I believe, would that take us through the consent calendar?
Yeah.
So now, item 55A, I would entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 55B, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 55C, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. 75A, Madam Clerk, there is a public hearing. So I would, at this time, like to have council consider amendment application 21403 to amend the zoning from light industrial to two-family residential R2 designation and variance number 1403 to allow reduction in required building setbacks at 1728 and 1732 West 2nd Street. Medeiros LLC is the applicant. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council. This is a request to allow the construction of a new home and then the rehabilitation of an existing structure to residential use. The site location currently has a vacant lot which is serving as parking for what is a house building that's been used as an industrial use over the years. The property is zoned industrial, but it's a general plan designation is residential, and its surrounding uses are mostly residential as well. It's been purchased, and the property owner would like to be able to renovate the existing house and construct another house there. And in order to do that, they would need to have the properties changed to residential zoning, which makes it consistent with the general plan designation, and also to have a variance for reduction in building setbacks. The existing building it's an old home, it's on a very small lot, and so it has some existing small setbacks. And the Planning Commission on July 28th did recommend approval, and this is our recommendation as well.
Any questions by council members? Seeing none, let me ask the clerk, do we have any written communications?
Have not received any.
Let me now ask, do we have any members of the audience that wish to address us on this item? Please come forward.
Yes, Mayor. Douglas Lanfear. I have a previous card filled out with my address and contact information. This is an M1 zone that's attempting to be changed or attempting to be rezoned. That M1 zone is one and the same that's provided for in the Measure CC for cannabis control. It is not included in the BB measure, which stands for bad bureaucracy or bad ballot measure, but we'll go ahead and leave that for another discussion at another time. That aside, the city is trying to reduce and eliminate zones that we have set aside or that have been set aside by a pending ballot measure for rezoning from M1 to a single-family residence R2, which would not be provided for within the cannabis control ordinance for location of storefront dispensaries. So I would ask the council to put this matter over at least until the election so that the M1 zone that's considering to be changed to an R2 zone can be considered without impacting the ballot initiative that presently is before the voters.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it to council for discussion and consideration.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Please go ahead, Councilor Reyna.
To the question that was just pointed out, what type of impact would this have on the potential zoning area for medical marijuana?
For the initiative that was recommended by the council to be placed on the ballot, none. This area would not have qualified. It's too close to residential. It's actually two small lots that total less than 11,000 square feet.
So we've identified and designated M1 to be the area.
Yes, if I can direct you to this diagram, you can see everything around it is R2. It's already residential. And for whatever reason, over the many years of the life of this area, there were these 3 parcels that were left zone M1. But in the analysis that we provided for the council when we were identifying the locations for the medical marijuana dispensary zones, this one wasn't included because it's too close to residential. So it would not have been allowed in either regard.
Okay, thank you.
With that, are there more questions? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. So with that, let's go on to item 75B. I would, at this time, like to have council consider final environmental impact report 2011-01, findings pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act Mitigation Monitoring Program, variance numbers 2012-04A, 2012-04B as conditioned, and vesting tentative tract number 2012-2 to allow a 23-unit single-family development at 1584 East Santa Clara Avenue, known as the Sexlinger Farmhouse and Orchard. At this point, is there any staff presentation or recommendation?
Mayor and council members, we don't have a formal presentation for you. We do have a written staff report for your consideration as part of the record, and the staff recommendation is that the City Council reaffirm its previous action by adopting a revised resolution which is presented for you in your packet this evening.
So it says here, presentation by Plan and Interim Executive Director Karen Haluza. We will forego that. And are there any written communications, Madam Clerk?
They have been distributed to the City Council.
Okay. I now will open up the public hearing, and we have several speakers. Angelica Ko-Tyke, I believe, is the first, followed by Jeff Melching. And after that, Mike Gibbons. Angelica, you go first.
Good evening.
The other mic.
Oh, excuse me. I live very close to the Sexlinger property, and all I ask is to have a cul-de-sac there between Lion and East Avalon. That's all I ask. A true cul-de-sac. Nothing else. You can do with the property what you want, but the thing is, there will be traffic. There's a grade school close by. And these people, the parents, when they take their children to the school in the morning and when they pick them up, they are so There's so many people there, and they will truly, truly go and take shortcuts, and that will go right past our house. And I don't approve of that. I don't appreciate it. And the new people that will be living in this new community will not appreciate that either. And this is all I have. Think about it. You don't live there, I live there, and so many other people live there. And the people that live in my neighborhood, they will not come because they think it's useless to come and speak up. But I believe there should be a closed cul-de-sac, not just a little bump there so that people will not drive fast, but a true cul-de-sac, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you for your input and your comment, Angelique. Jeff Gotchke. Jeff Melching, followed by Mike Gibbons.
Mr. Mayor, before the speaker speaks, can we have staff change out the visual or the slide?
Yeah, that's a good
I think it's
idea.
for a previous item, so.
We have a site location on what we're seeing, Karen.
For the
I don't know
prior-
if you would change it or somebody back there, but it's not relevant to what we're talking about right now. That's better, the city logo. See, now we'll look at you instead of the wrong rendering.
I'm
Please
not
go
sure
ahead.
that's better. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Jeff Melching. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. As you know, this is a matter that you previously reviewed and considered on March 4th of this year. We're supportive of staff's recommended action, which simply brings the findings into line with the determination that you made on March 4th. No new information to speak of, no new evidence at issue before you. And beyond that, I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for your presence here, Jeff. It's duly noted. Mike Gibbons, followed by Nick Spain.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I appreciate your patience. This has been a long process over a couple of years, and we appreciate both staff and city council members, just sort of cleaning up the record here. If you have any questions from the two schools, I represent Orange Lutheran High School and Concordia University, so if there's any questions, we're here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just please be on standby. Nick Spain, followed by Deborah Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. We with the Old Orchard Conservancy were a little perplexed by the nature of this proceeding when we received the notice of the public hearing. I feel a little bit like we've gone down Alice's rabbit hole here. If this were a short story, I think Franz Kafka would probably be the author. This staff report requesting a resolution adopting findings on the Sexlinger Orchard and Farmhouse Development Project is prima facie acknowledgement of significant legal defects in the City Council's approval this past March 4th for the proposed development of Orange Lutheran High School and Concordia University's development project. And that was a council approval without citing sufficient findings. And that's what this staff report reflects and attempts to correct. And we argue that this is an inappropriate venue for doing that for a variety of technical, legal reasons that our next speaker will go into some of those. And that tonight's hearing is an ex post facto attempt at backfilling those procedural errors. And I think Mr. Melching indicated that was what is being attempted here. And we would argue that there is no legal framework for the council taking this action tonight. In fact, this proceeding, we feel, calls into question the entire approval process for this project. One last thing I want to state is that since we're talking about going backwards here and repairing damage, I want to repair some damage that was done with the misperception that we think affected some council members' original decision. And that misperception was that the Old Orchard Conservancy never had the ability or funding to make a serious attempt at purchasing this property. That was a disinformation campaign. I know various council members were operating under that misperception. The Old Orchard Conservancy, as of spring of 2013, made a hard money offer in excess of $2 million to purchase that property. It was not accepted by the schools, and that was certainly their prerogative. We made other offers to raise additional monies to make that purchase. That did not work out. In our most recent negotiations, which...
Nick, if you can conclude it.
I will. I'm going to conclude right now. In our most recent negotiations, we've offered hard money in significant amounts more than that. The point here is that we have had the ability to raise hard money for this issue, and we have done that, and that should be fully appreciated and understood by the members of the council and other people of the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, I think Deborah is next, followed by Jeannie Gillette, and then Steve Ray.
Good evening. I'm Deborah Rosenthal. I'm representing the Old Orchard Conservancy, and I hate to disappoint Nick, but I don't intend to be too technical. We didn't even find out that the city intended to try and adopt expanded, new and improved findings until after the close of business on Thursday. These findings didn't even exist when the council made its decision. It doesn't make any sense to try and adopt them. We did submit an objection letter this afternoon. It was circulated to you in black binders. I don't want to dignify this proceeding really by bringing in a lot more evidence, but we did adopt by reference our prior submittals. I would like to say that I'm not a golfer, but I understand in golfing there is a concept of something called a mulligan, and that's when you take a bad shot and you're allowed to swing again without a penalty in very limited circumstances. It's essentially what we call a do-over. And I agree that this hearing is the result of a bad shot that the city took in March. But there are no mulligans in tract map approvals or variance approvals. And it's clear that what the city is trying to do here tonight is to ask you to try and give some perceived advantage by a do-over in the lawsuit that the Conservancy has brought against the city's decision. And I understand that mulligans are prohibited in professional golf, and they are prohibited in real land use. I'd finally like to say that this is not, as far as I understand it, a real hearing. It cannot be a real hearing unless the council has the legal authority to change its mind and reject this application, and which we think the council should do. But I guarantee that if that was a possibility, if that was allowed, this council would be hearing strong objections from the applicant's attorney. If this was a real hearing, if this was a real mulligan, so to speak. So unless the council has both the right and the understanding that it is allowed to reject the decision that it made in April, this is not a real hearing, it's a sham for litigation advantage. And we would ask the city council to clarify that just like there are no mulligans in professional golf, there are not mulligans or do-overs in land use decisions.
Thank you. Jeannie, followed by Steve Ray.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeannie Gillette. I find it very ironic that earlier in the meeting tonight, I was standing up here as part of a group that spends a lot of time and energy doing historic preservation. And now I'm before you, 75B, and it's historic preservation slap in the face. I'm very disappointed in the City Council, and shame on you, shame on all of you, for having money be the first objective in your decision-making process. And also, I feel like the Sexlinger Orchard and Farmhouse is probably the most unique historic resource in this city, and you voted for 95% of that to be destroyed. Shame on the Santa Ana staff, the city staff, for their failure to understand the process and how it works. They continually do a bad job throughout this process for the Sexlinger property. Finally, shame on the owners. Shame on them for having money be their priority. Greed is definitely the forefront of all of their actions, as well as shame on them for their disregard for our cultural and historical heritage. Shame on all of you.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council, I'm Steve Ray of the Old Orchard Conservancy. With all due respect, and I really mean that, all due respect, are you guys crazy? This is the most outlandish, fiendish scheme. This is an attempt by your staff and by the applicant to persuade you that you can it's okay to go back and cheat the law, because you will be, there's no provision in your city code or in state law that allows you to take this action. There are provisions that you can follow to reverse your previous action and then do it over from the beginning and do it properly. But as Nick stated earlier, what we have here is a prima facie de facto admission by your staff and by the applicant that you blew it. You absolutely blew it the first time around. Because in a court, the action that you took did not subscribe to the requirements of CEQA, did not subscribe to the requirements of the state planning and zoning law, and as a result, you have a bad case here. In order to make up for that, your staff is now going back and trying to rewrite history and getting you guys to buy into this. You just can't do this. If you're going to do it right, say, okay, we're going to cancel our previous action, go back, do it all over from the beginning. That's option number one that you have in front of you. The second option is the option you're being asked to take, and that is, let's go ahead and cheat. Let's just go ahead and say we're just gonna play monkey. You know that monkey see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Well, that's what you're being asked to do, to pretend that the truth isn't the truth and reality isn't reality, and therefore they're asking you to go back and just cheat the system. That's your second option. Your third option would be, since many of you have been concerned and expressed concern in the past about the fact whether there's money enough to buy this, we now have money on the table that's higher than their original asking price for the property. Okay, and they're still holding out. Okay, there's a deal going on here that we're trying to make, but it's not happening. So your other possibility then is to actually sit down with them, the money changers over here, and say, make a deal. Let's get this deal done. Let's do it right. Let's preserve this asset for the city. Don't be crazy. My God, this is such a crazy, odd thing that you're asking you to do. The only thing you should really do here is have a good laugh about this and just say no. Thank you.
Okay, I think with that, is there anybody else that wishes to address us? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for consideration. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have a little bit of amnesia going forward here. Sometimes I bang my head against the wall thinking you have an organization who comes to you and says, here we have these orchards, and we want to create this amazing program that looks great. And this council, to help them out, says, okay, we're going to basically delay. So we delay so that you can raise the money to buy it and show us that you can maintain it. And when we sat down in our meetings a year later, I said, how much money do you have? It was $13,000. That's the number I remember you gave me. And in my head, I'm thinking, you had a whole year. You can't, at that moment, you didn't show me that you could purchase the property, let alone maintain it. A year and 6 months go by, we're at the same boat. At that point, you have an organization here. It's not guys that are coming over here to make money and get rich. These people are working to put the money into education. They're putting it into Orange Lutheran and a university. This is education money. These guys are not running to the bank. They're going to be using it for another good. So at the end of the day is, if you have the ability, we all have wonderful ideas and wonderful plans. I want to put a nice patio in my backyard, but I can't do it because I don't have the funds yet. So I have to save for it, and when I get it, then I'm able to move forward. The orchards, there was a lot of things that weren't said. A lot of them were dead. Let's be honest. And so to come up here and say, shame on you, council, that's unfortunate, because you do have good hearts, and I think you do have your hearts in the right place, and I do believe in what you stand for. But there's a moment where you have to say, I just don't have the money, and Sal, I'm sorry, we can't go forward. My perception now is that through litigation, people have tried to delay, and I just think that's wrong. And so tonight, I think we've given you an opportunity. We've done things that other councils would never done for you, and that is giving you a fighting chance. And I think we're at the point now where we have to move forward. So my recommendation is I will be supporting the motion.
Any other thoughts?
I'll second the item, Mayor. We've heard quite a bit from both sides. I think we're ready to move forward.
Okay, what I would offer is that I think as we move forward here, maybe there is still an opportunity for the Orchard Group, if you do have the money, to make a deal with, I see folks nodding their head out there that represent Orange Lutheran, and I am hopeful that maybe something can still be worked out, because, I think when the family gave the property, they did so believing that it would be a benefit to the schools at some point in time. And look, many of us up here would like to see more orange trees out there, and that's why we've gone, I think, a long time trying to figure out how can we make it happen. So again, I intend to support this motion here tonight, but you did talk about a third option, which was maybe you can still do a deal. And I drove by the property recently. I know it's already been bulldozed, but trees can be replanted under a different development, and maybe this can all work out well at the end. So with that, Councilor Martinez?
Just really quickly, Mayor, because I probably will be the only no here today, and I just want to let the applicants know it's not because I don't support them, but it's because of the wrongdoing that we're doing here today and what we're having to do, and it's not the applicant's fault. And I think the applicant has done its due diligence. They've been waiting for a very long time, and for us to have done this to them and to put them in this position here today. But I cannot here support this, because this should have been done. Somebody missed the details, and I'm going to be diplomatic here today. I'm not going to get angry at our staff, but I cannot support this item here today. Thank you.
All right, so with that, I'm going to call for the question, but I just personally want to let the applicant know that I may be coming back at you requesting a meeting, just personally seeing if we can't do something to put this together. So with that, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion, was that another no? Correct. So there's 2 no's. So with that, Councilor, I think Martinez and Reyna voting no. So with that, motion carries, and we're on to the next item here. I believe we're now on 85A, and I would call on Council Member Martinez for that item.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very quickly, if you could have Chief Rojas, I'm not sure if you have anyone else here. I think it's only you left. But on this item here, as we're discussing bicycle registration and ticketing, I think at our last council meeting, you heard a lot of the public speakers. And, I'm not an expert in transportation. I'm not in law enforcement. And so, before I make a recommendation, I just wanted to make sure, what is our bicycle registration policy as it is now, one, and then two, what's our ticketing policy only in the downtown as it pertains to riding bicycles?
In terms of our policy regarding bike registration, we have about 700 bikes registered in our database, and really the primary purpose is to be able to get those stolen bikes back to the rightful owner. I believe yours had been stolen a couple times and we were able to recover it. So it is very beneficial if you do have your bike license. In terms of ticketing, we follow the municipal code. Officers have the discretion as described in the California Penal Code, and they do use it as a tool for enforcement.
Thank you, Chief Rojas. As you know, as we move forward to being a more bike-friendly, community, I'm not going to say that I want to get rid of the bike registration because I believe it's a valuable tool. I just don't think that, we should mandate it. The fact of the matter is that when you give a ticket, I think it's $8.
I don't know what the fine is.
It's a minimal fee, and just having the officer write the ticket and sending it to the third party. I just wonder what does that cost us? And so I want to continue to have this bike registration because, as you alluded to, my bike has been stolen twice. And one, Santa Ana PD recovered it the first time, and then the second time, Irvine PD, with the help of Santa Ana PD, recovered my bike again for the second time. And so I think the bike registration does work, but at the same time, I don't think we should penalize folks. We should encourage more people. And I want to say that our police department has done a phenomenal job in registering people. I know a couple years ago, we really didn't put a huge emphasis in trying to register folks, but as we've been to the bike safety community fairs that you guys have put together, you guys have bike registration there, and we've been able to really to do a lot, essentially, and register a lot of these bikes here in our community. And so as it pertains to the ticketing of the bicycling here in the downtown and the Civic Center, I'm not going to take a position here today because I want to work very closely with you and your traffic division. As we move forward in the downtown, it's currently illegal, one, to ride your bicycle in the downtown. And in the Civic Center area, we all know that folks are riding their bicycles as well within the sidewalk and within the location, what makes it legal as well. But the problem is that there's not enough room for bicyclists to be safe on the actual road. We have no bike infrastructure, and really our streets are very narrow. And so we're kind of penalizing our community who's trying to really ride their bicycles, and we're making it illegal. So I think that we need to find a win-win solution, Chief Rojas, and I know that we can do that and really talk more in these next couple of months of what we can do as it pertains to ticketing in the downtown. And so I would like to work with you on that issue along with our city manager. But as it pertains to the bike registration, I would like to make a motion here today, one, to make it voluntary, and then as well support possibly an online system. I think a couple months ago I shared with you guys the online registration that Sacramento has. So it would alleviate a lot of the time for some of your officers and others to be writing that down, where there's a system in Sacramento where you could just do online registration. And I don't foresee it would be a problem for us to create, something like that on the police department's website. And so those are the two items I would like to consider. One, I don't want to get rid of the bike registration, but I just want to make sure that it's voluntary and that we don't, ticket folks anymore, so it's no longer mandatory.
And I believe the city attorney's office would have to opine, because we do go based on the Santa Ana Municipal Code, which does allow the officers the discretion to go ahead and cite. So if it's on the books, the officers do have that discretion. So I think maybe the city attorney would be able to shed some light on that for us.
Madam City Attorney? Madam City Attorney?
Maybe I can take this.
Mayor? Madam City Attorney, what would we have to do to amend the code to make bike registration voluntary and not mandatory?
There is no state law requiring such registration, so you would need to do an ordinance amendment. You need to adopt an ordinance, you need to prepare an ordinance and have a first and second reading and its adoption.
Okay, and I want to say from the police department standpoint, we do look forward to further discussing this, and we want to present the opinion and the perspective of a lot of our officers out in the field trying to keep the community safe. So.
No, certainly. So again, I'm not trying to remove the bike registration. I think it's important. I'm not talking about ticketing. What I'm talking about is making sure that we continue to have bike registration, but just making it voluntary. A lot of cities across California have gone away with bike registration. It's just at the end of the day, we don't want to penalize folks, for not having bike registration. What we should do is continue to encourage them to register their bikes and also ride their bikes here in the city. We have a community here that you have a lot of homeless here in our civic center, but a majority of our residents ride their bicycles to work. Our youth are riding their bicycles, and unfortunately, and this is not the police department's fault, we need to set policies as we move forward to making sure we create a bike infrastructure so that kids and others and residents feel comfortable to actually ride on the road. At this moment in time, we don't have that infrastructure, and so we're not going to have folks riding right next to a vehicle. Kids and folks that are not used to riding on the road, they fear for their lives, and I certainly get it. And so there's times where I'm riding on the sidewalk as well, because I understand that, sometimes in certain areas, you don't want to be on the road. One example is Main Street. You don't want to be on the road. And so it is my hope that we can continue this dialogue. And so what I would recommend is that we work on creating an ordinance to make it voluntary, and then working with our police department to see if they have any other options, so there could be a win-win situation for all of us.
Well, you want direction from the council so that they maybe work on something along those lines? Why don't you make a motion? I'll be happy to second it.
I'd like to make a motion, one, to look at creating a new ordinance to making bike registration voluntary versus making it mandatory.
All right, and we give it a time frame, a couple months?
How long, Chief, would you need to, so that we can work on this? 30 days?
Yeah, I would say 30 to 45 days.
Why don't make it 45,
45 days,
and if they need more, let us know.
Thank you.
Yes,
all right.
45 days.
Okay.
So with that, there's a motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. I now, and Madam Clerk, help me out, I want to come back to item 75B. I know we just voted on that a few moments ago, but I personally really want us to reconsider that. I know that I would very much like to attempt to have the parties come together and maybe come to some solution. So if we can bring it back for reconsideration, I don't know if Councilmember Sarmiento is going to choose to abstain or not.
Well, first of all, we need to have a motion to reconsider.
You need to have a person who voted in the affirmative.
That my motion will be that we have a motion to reconsider.
Do you have a second?
And I'll second that motion.
You need to vote on that.
And can you explain what
I want to do is we had basically a vote where there was two in opposition. I believe Councilor Reyna and Councilor Martinez voted no for their own reasons. I would like to reconsider this and vote in the same way, and I'll tell you the reason is I want to see if the parties can't come together, and I think that they have more of an opportunity to come together without us taking the previous vote. If not, we can come back and reconsider it in the future. I believe that Councilor Sarmiento, and he can speak for himself, has a potential conflict, but please speak to that.
I do, and I want to ask for my colleagues' indulgence. I did approach the mayor to reconsider this item because, and I spoke to Madam City Attorney on this, that there is maybe not a technical or legal conflict, but I do believe that there's an apparent conflict that I may have. My son is now a student at Orange Lutheran, which the applicant represents. So there is no economic benefit to me whether or not they prevail on their application, but out of an abundance of caution, I thought that the correct thing to do would be for me to recuse myself from voting. My concern now is that Mayor Pro Tem isn't present, so he isn't here to participate in this subsequent reconsideration. So it's kind of confusing. This is my error. As we were talking about this, my son just started school, and I started realizing that there could be a perceived conflict that I may have. And so we're still talking about the reconsideration, but that was my cause for having the matter reconsidered, so I could go ahead
So you
and
would
abstain
first
from the
need
vote.
to take an action on that procedural issue, even whether you want to reconsider your vote. You don't have, so if you wanted to reconsider your vote, you would vote yes on this motion. If you want to leave the vote as it was, you would vote no. And then you would need to actually revisit the vote that was taken.
Correct. So right now, let's vote on the reconsideration.
A couple of questions for the City Attorney.
Please go ahead.
Could this matter if we were to decide to reconsider? Can we? I just want to factor in the fact that Mayor Pro Tem's not here, and he took a vote, took position, and could we reconsider at a subsequent meeting if it's something that we would want to?
Well, you could, but you'd have to do it immediately at your next meeting. I know that there are a lot of deadlines or a lot of litigation things going on. If you were in a position to want to reconsider your vote, if you tended to do that, I would suggest that you do that and then don't take any action and continue the item.
That's probably a safer thing.
That if you're inclined to reconsider. If you're not inclined to reconsider, then the decision you made would stay.
The other question I had is the action that we have on the table, whether we allow the action that we took to move forward, or if we reconsider, does it preclude the applicant and the other parties to continue their dialogue? And
regardless of whether you reconsider or not, the parties can continue to talk. We're still preparing and finalizing the administrative record. We still have to go through a briefing project. In my opinion, there's still many, many opportunities for the parties to come together. So I don't know that your action would influence that process because we're months away from any final decision.
It's given that, again, I just think that if we're going to reconsider, maybe, and I understand that the question, that Councilman Sarmiento has, but, my thought is let's go ahead and bring it back. And if this was something that was a completely new item that we had not taken action on in the past, I could see where there could be an apparent appearance of conflict, but I think it has been a discussion we've been having, and I think we've taken votes on it before, so I don't think it's necessarily...
Again, the reason why I raised it to the mayor and I raised it to the city attorney, school just started, so he just became...
In the past, there
wasn't a conflict in the past. It's just a new conflict that potentially has the appearance of being a conflict. We're not even sure if it's a real one, but again, out of an abundance of caution, I thought we could reconsider. I didn't think my abstention would really disrupt the vote itself, because there was a plurality, there was a majority when Mayor Pro Tem was here. Again, I think that it might be better if the full council is present to maybe possibly reconsider. Madam City Attorney, I could change my I'd like to change my substitute motion to continue the matter, if that's something that might work better.
Yeah, but you still have to get through the procedural issue. So you have a vote that is being recorded by your city clerk. That vote nothing even happens with that vote unless you first get a vote here to reconsider.
So if we were to vote in the affirmative right to reconsider, then we could bring back a motion to
Correct,
continue any other action so that it's available for us to take action in the future. So with that, let me just call for the question on the reconsideration. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No, I'll go with my side.
All
I'll
right,
go with
thank
the
you.
aye.
All right, so we've now voted
Can you
to...
make sure, just because we do have applicants' rights, can we just make sure we take the roll call vote, or at least let the city clerk know?
All right.
We're legally required to do that, so I could not tell from that vote who voted yes and who voted no, so we need to make sure that's clear.
Who voted yes? Raise
I'm an
your
aye.
hand.
I'll go along with it, too.
So it's 5.
There you go, thank you.
Okay, so now the next motion be, we continue it for 2 weeks so that the full council is here. Would that be appropriate? And that way it stays on the
You can do
record and
that.
it's alive, and meanwhile, we'll be doing some talking. So with that, why don't...
I'll make the motion to...
And I'll
to continue
second
to the
it
next one.
for 2 weeks. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries, so it'll be on the agenda at the next council meeting. We'll go from there. So with that, I think we are on Thank you, Councilor Martinez. I know we just did 85A, and so now we're going to go on to the Housing Authority meeting, and I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Let's consider item number 3, the business item. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Seeing no more comments to the Housing Authority, now we will come to the work study session, and I would turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We do have a short presentation, and we'll begin with Karen Haluza, followed by Chief Rojas.
Thank you, City Manager Cavazos, Mayor, and members of the council. Chief Rojas and I do have a very brief presentation for you tonight. This is a follow-up from the July 15th City Council meeting, and just as a way of just to set the background a little bit, on July 1st, the City Council did vote to place a competing initiative on November ballot that would allow but regulate a limited number of medical marijuana collectives and cooperatives in the city, limited to industrial zones. And then on July 15th, the City Council directed staff to do 3 things. One was to create an enforcement task force using current resources to allocate $500,000 for overtime pay to fund additional enforcement, and to identify and prioritize medical marijuana collectives operating illegally for shutdown. That allocation of funds needed to have a formal action taken. That first came to the council August 5th, and it was then continued to this evening, and it appeared on the agenda earlier tonight, but then was pulled in order to hear the study session first. I wanted to provide you with that background, and now I'd like to turn it over to Chief Rojas for some additional information.
Briefly, the enforcement update that we have for you. Our operational focus was current law, current municipal code 18-612 that prohibits marijuana dispensaries. We did 4 deployments, 126 arrests. 3 of those arrests did include security guards in regards to the firearms and guard cards that they had or did not have, but they weren't in compliance with state law. So we dealt with those with business and profession code citations, and then those cases have been submitted to the city attorney's office. Staff resources for enforcement, we put together 3 funding scenarios, and it would include folks from the city attorney's office, the planning and building agency, and the Santa Ana Police Department. Scenario number 1, and all of these, of course, are scalable, and that includes 2 code enforcement officers, a senior code enforcement officer, senior office assistants, 2 assistant city attorneys, and then half of a combination building inspector and part-time, and 1 police officer. So that would be the lowest level of regulation and enforcement. Second scenario would be $1.5 million, and this basically would add another police officer into the mix, which would allow more flexibility and
Chief
more
Rojas,
enforcement.
just very quickly, since say whatever measure passes, and this is what scenarios we're talking about, is for future enforcement. If whatever measure passes, is that a true statement?
That's a true statement. Yes.
Second, as it pertains to these new, putting them in these industrial zones, at this moment in time, can you tell me how many officers you deploy into the industrial and commercial areas? At this given time?
How many officers I deploy in general?
Just in general that have an assignment in the industrial or commercial area. Do you have any officers that go off into the industrial commercial without getting a phone call?
No, we don't have any officers assigned to downtown. We don't have any officers assigned to industrial. They're all assigned to policing districts, and we currently do have the 4 policing districts. So they would be responsible for either 1, responding to a call for service in the industrial area, or many of them do patrol checks and preventative patrol in those industrial areas.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the third scenario would be a more robust scenario, which would include 4 police detectives, and then that would be focused in terms of the PD's participation would be on narcotics trafficking and more serious violations. The other 2 scenarios from a police department standpoint would be would be scaled back in terms of the type of enforcement we would be able to provide. And those are the 3 scenarios that we have put together. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you for that. Questions, thoughts, anything anybody wants to add?
Mr. City Manager, are you making a recommendation?
Ms. City Manager, do you have any comment?
We had a continuance on the prior item for 2 weeks, and with regard to the items here, they're for direction and discussion by the City Council. We don't have a recommendation.
Okay. So with that, any other thoughts? Councilor Martinez?
Thank you, Mayor. And this won't be to you, Chief Rojas, but when we were discussing some of the scenarios a couple months ago in regards to enforcement, as it pertains, I see all the different departments that would play a role in enforcing medical marijuana here in the city if either ballot initiative moves forward. One of the items that is not included, and I know we talked in detail about that, and I know Karen's going to get up, is more from the financial aspect. So I'm not sure, Karen, if that's going to be different from the enforcement plan. Are we going to consider hiring someone to, that is familiar with the finances of a cash business?
We actually did discuss that, and I had that discussion with Francisco, our finance director, and we felt that it would be better to not have this as a staff person on the city staff, but that this would be an additional service that we would look for from an auditing firm. It's unusual for a city to have their own forensic auditor. That's something where you usually use an outside firm to see if there was any problems that were going
and
on.
the reason why I bring that up, because the city of Oakland has its own forensic auditor, and that's where I got the idea when I went to visit Oakland. And so I just think it's very important that that's a main component, and how it's going to be funded. Is the city going to fund that, or is that going to be part of the funding plan when, if either ballot measure passes, a part of the revenues that will be received from these medical marijuana dispensaries to pay, and assuring that we do our due diligence as it pertains to the finances.
Yeah, there would be a variety of administrative tasks that would have to occur in addition to just this enforcement effort, and that could be one of them.
Great, thank you.
Okay, with that, any other thoughts or comments? If not, let's just continue on with our meeting then, and City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. Very brief. We have a Plaza Wellness event this weekend. We have almost 500 people registered for Santa Ana's first ever 5K. I've actually registered, so I encourage everybody to join in. We have a VIP basketball game. We have a Zumba contest, and we have a health fair. So I just wanted to tell the council.
When is the 5K again?
This weekend.
What time?
I think it's at 8 o'clock.
Why don't you come to the mic, Gerardo? Are you going to run in it? Remember when we did the rubber boot race?
Yeah, I'm the first person that registered. So
You
I'm
did?
running it, yeah.
How did that happen?
He's in charge of the event.
So you set it up, so you registered yourself first?
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
Anyway, people can arrive at 6:30 in the morning and they can get their registration material, but the registration is online, as the city manager mentioned. Close to 500 have registered already. The route, I personally have run it twice. It's beautiful. It's the old.
Describe it.
The old. You start on 5th in French. You go up to Santa Ana Boulevard, turn left on Santa Ana Boulevard, go through Old County Courthouse, go through Hall of Administration, go through Court of Appeals, turn where the credit union is, and then come back on 5th Street, turn right on Bush to 4th to Ross. The midpoint water station is at the Starbucks. You turn left on Ross to 3rd through the Birch Park all the way, 3rd all the way to Broadway to 2nd Street Promenade, the fountain, in between Gypsy Den and those restaurants. People will be running there. You go through the 2nd Street Promenade all the way to Main left to 3rd Street. You turn right where the old City Hall is. 3rd Street all the way to Lacey. Lacey, you turn left on Lacey at Garfield Center. Garfield to, Lacey to 6th Street. 6th Street to Minter. Minter to 4th. 4th, you finish.
You ran it twice. This is good, Arlo.
Yeah.
Is it 5K? Did you measure the distance?
3.1 miles.
Councilman Reagan is already winded and ready to pass out over here.
I'll sign up. I'll see if we can't do it. You're running it? All right, let's run.
It's a beautiful route. It's a beautiful route, and it's the first time in Santa Ana's history that we're doing a 5K in the downtown area. And people can get there and get their bib number starting at 6:30, but we will start the race at 8 o'clock. People will have an hour and 15 minutes to finish the race. We start breaking down because we have to close the streets an hour and 15 minutes afterwards, even though people will still be allowed to finish, of course. And the first 500 registered people that finish get medals. And there'll be a first, second, and third place winner for men and for women. And, and then we have the VIP basketball game, and we have the health fair, and we have a Zumba competition, which is going to be a lot of fun. And it's all there around Plaza Santana.
Well, look, the city manager's doing the 5K, and Councilman Arena, you're going to do it as well? So I think we go out there and run.
Yeah.
All right, so where do we sign up? Just Parks and Recs, or?
I'll work with your assistants, and then, yeah.
All right. Well, look, I once did a 10K in about 40 minutes. I did a marathon in 3:18. So I ought to be able to do this 5K, even though I'm not running lately. We'll figure it out.
You should do it in 25 minutes then.
Or less.
I think you should do it in
Or
rubber.
less. Hey, the first mile in the marathon was 5:31, so in a marathon. All right.
Quick question is as a follow-up while everybody kind of compares times over here. What is the actual website where people online can go to register?
Well, it's santana.org/parks/wellness.
Okay. So on the city's website, Parks and Recreation page.
Yeah, Parks and Recreation/wellness.
Okay.
Gerardo, when you were doing the course, I interrupted you. Did you finish the 5K? Was that the end of the 5K when you were telling us all the streets?
Yeah, it's.
Where does it end?
It ends where it starts, which is 5th and French, by the plaza. Yeah, where our the corner of between Northgate and our parking structure.
Got it.
Yeah. And it's timed. It's official. It's going to be wonderful. Wonderful.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Good report, Ms. City Manager. Council comments, Councilman over there. All right, Councilor Reyna.
Just as we're talking about, actually, the 5K is phenomenal. The first time downtown Santa Ana. This is the one physical activity that the entire family could do. It's not basketball, it's not soccer, it's not baseball, where only a percentage amount of the people or the families can participate. This is from the baby in the stroller being pushed by brother and sister, mom and dad, or even grandma. Some of the time frames, I'm just beyond me. The last 5K I did was like 32 minutes, so I'm going to shoot for 31 minutes. But I definitely encourage everybody to get involved and to participate. I normally start my comments with, please conserve water. We definitely live in a desert, although it doesn't look like it, and that just goes to show you how much money, how much water we're utilizing to make this paradise out here. It's a serious issue right now, so please conserve as much as you possibly can. Today, first day of school. Welcome back to Santa Ana Unified. For those that are getting your late start, you probably noticed a little bit more traffic out there because the kids are back out there. So I wish all the students and the teachers and the faculty and the support mechanisms to have a great year and to graduate as many students from their classes as humanly possible. I had an opportunity to go to Catalina, and I apologize for not making the last meeting in August. Catalina was a phenomenal trip. We took a total of 75 people from Santa Ana. Most of the students had never been to the ocean, let alone ride in a boat or even see a buffalo. And the impact that this program has, the return on an investment is absolutely incredible. In the past, we've had students that became volunteers. Our volunteers became part-time staff. Our part-time staff became full-time and are now currently leading in other nonprofit organizations that are still operating here in the city of Santa Ana. So the fact that we invest so much time and energy and resources, we truly are reaping the benefits of that. So sign up early as much as you possibly can. It's a great trip. Did have a question for staff before I finish up. Just want to get a heads up or our status of the CDBG process. We want to make sure that those funds are going back to the nonprofit world as well. I know that we started this conversation at the last meeting in July, but I want to make sure that we stay on task with that as well. And like always, shop in Santa Ana. Thanks so very much.
Thank you. Councilor, please go ahead, Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things. One is I want to thank everybody who came out and spoke today on a number of different issues. We had a full house down here, council, a number of items or issues that really drew out passion and people. One of those being the homeless multi-service shelter that's being considered by the Orange County Board of Supervisors. And we had, for the majority of the folks who did come out to speak on that, were not necessarily in favor of. But the one speaker who did, I think, spoke in a way that I think we should, gave us a message I think we should really consider is the director of Mercy House, which basically stated that he understands the opposition or the feelings that people might have that are not too happy with us considering a shelter, or the county considering a shelter near their property, whether it be business or residence. But one of the other things is I don't know that anybody that he's ever encountered people coming out to raise their hand and say, I want to see a shelter near me. So this is one of those things where I think no matter what location we were to choose, I think all of us recognize the fact that there's a need to address and to serve in a dignified way the homeless population in our city. I think we've heard it here on the council, we've heard it from folks out there, even those opposing this proposed shelter. However, no matter where we were to place it, I don't think we wouldn't get opposition. So something for us to consider is it's easy for anybody to support something that's popular. It's easy to get behind it and support it, but true leadership comes at a place, and you demonstrate true leadership when we do the right thing, even when there is pushback. And I think in this case, there are concerns that are being expressed, valid concerns that we can, I think, address. Some of those already are addressed in the ordinance that we did approve, but people might not be aware of the operational standards, for example. There might be other security measures that we might want to include to make it a little bit more robust or spell it out, where we can maybe strengthen certain aspects of the ordinance. But it is something where I hope that what happened in Fullerton is not what happens here. When it becomes unpopular, Fullerton basically turned their backs, walked away, and now they're losing millions of dollars of investment that the county had set aside to provide a multi-service shelter there. We currently have a shelter that houses 100 plus people near Dalhai, and we haven't heard all of these right around residential, literally across the street from homes. We haven't heard all this opposition, all the scare that people and the fear that people have with what's being discussed here in Normandy in an industrial area. There haven't been these attacks, there haven't been these different just measures or reasons for fear that have been discussed here tonight and at the previous forum that we heard over at Kennedy Elementary School. It's understandable. People are concerned about change. When there are questions that they don't have answers to, uncertainty, that they'll oppose things. But again, that's not just knee-jerk reaction, respond to some of these questions and the pushback that people have. Let's mitigate them, let's address them, and let's do the right thing and stand by just providing a solution. Right at this point, we don't have an adequate solution, and one is being presented to us that we can receive from the county those funds and a qualified service provider that can actually address some of those needs that the homeless community has. So I hope that we do the right thing, we demonstrate leadership, and we continue to support this opportunity that's before us. I want to also just welcome or extend a welcome to students who are back in school, or wish them all well. And as we go back and do maybe our last minute or after the fact back to school shopping, encourage folks to shop in the city of Santa Ana. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Councilor Martinez, please.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Exhausted. Can't believe I'm saying that, but I am. I want to start off with, one, thanking all our residents, for continuing to be engaged and coming to the council meeting. I think it's important. It's great. But one thing that I find very disrespectful, and I appreciate everyone's opinion. I try to respect everyone wherever they stand, whether they're for the council, for our staff, or not. But the moment that you start disrespecting other residents when they want to make it's their turn to make comment, I think it sends a bad message. And so I would like to encourage our residents to be respectful with one another when it's their time to speak. And then, look, I understand that there are going to be times where we're going to disagree on various issues. But the moment that you choose to come up here and disrespect our police department, whether you're supportive or not, but to come up here and just shout and say negative things about our police department, that's totally wrong. We're not always going to agree, but you don't do this in front of public television. The misconduct is inappropriate. And I would hope that folks that are listening and folks that have come here and talk negatively towards our police, and in particular our chief, that they apologize. Look, I guarantee that we're not always going to agree with our chief 100%. But at the end of the day, we need to be respectful of one another. And today, many of us were not. And they're just trying to do their job. Yes, at the end of the day, this council sets policy, but there's a process. The city manager is in charge of all of his executive directors, including the police chief. And certainly, we're his boss. And we have those policy conversations. And sometimes, we may not always be aligned, but we respect one another. And I think we need to continue to do so. When we were excited once upon a time that we were empowering our residents. We were excited when they participated in the Sunshine Ordinance, in the 5-year strategic plan. But we never expected to have this kind of discourse and disrespect. And as we move forward, and if we want to build bridges and we want to build relationships, whether it be with this council or with our police department, this is not the appropriate way to do so. And so I'm just encouraging our residents who were here earlier, that may disagree with certain things, to really think the next time that they come here and how they approach, the city council, and how they address our police department. I'll tell you that, there's going to be times where we are not going to agree on everything, but we're not going to go off on each other here publicly, because it's not the right thing to do. I don't think that you guys expect that of us. You want us to be professional. And so at the end of the day, I just hope as we move forward that we will continue to work together as a community. I think we've done a tremendous amount of change here and progress within the city. And yes, we're not finished yet. This is just the beginning. The community asked us to update the general plan, the zoning plan, create a visioning plan, create a community engagement strategy. We're involving the community more so than ever before. And for whatever reason, it's not enough that we're not listening to you. And, that's far from the truth. We have always had an open door policy. We may not agree on everything, but it doesn't mean that we're not being responsive, that we're not hearing you out, because we are. And we enjoy conversing. I see Irma in the audience. I enjoy when she calls us or wants to invite us somewhere. And we're not always going to agree, but I know she has a great heart, and she's here. Look what time it is. She's here because she's committed to improving her neighborhood and building relationships with this council and our staff. And I didn't want to have this conversation, but as I sat here and listened to all the comments, it's really disheartening in many respects that people want to come here and threaten us. I'll tell you that, look, my 8 years of service have not been easy. There have been a lot of struggles to move the city where it's at today. And I'll tell you that if I'm not elected in November, it's not the end of the world. I have worked my tail off to improve this city. And at the end of the day, let me tell you, I could go to sleep at night. And so I'm okay if you feel that I have not done the job that you've asked me to do. Because I know that I have committed 150% to this community. And it hurts when people come here and want to badmouth us and saying that we don't listen to anyone. And so what I would hope, whoever gets elected, whoever is here on this dais after November, that you learn how to build bridges, because you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. So good night.
Thank you. Councilor Vince Sarmiento, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's very hard to follow, but I echoed a lot of what was said. It is disappointing when you hear discourse that sometimes reduces itself to attacks and criticism. So I know that's part of the process. This is the House of the people, and we have to indulge people's comments whether we agree or not. So I hope we exercise more decorum, and I know we try to up here. Sometimes it gets biased, but we, I know, have to lead by example. So I'm glad. I'm always proud of my colleagues up here, because we do use a lot of restraint, and sometimes we'd like to be a little bit more vocal and maybe a little bit more graphic with some of our comments, but I know that many of us temper those. So what I do want to say and begin with is welcoming a new member of our staff, and I still see him here. And Fred, I still haven't remembered your last name, but he's going to be our new Director of Public Works. So welcome. Our meetings aren't always this exciting, so you caught us on a good night. The second thing I wanted to mention was the whole idea of the whole conversation about the homeless shelter. It's an issue that raises passions, and I understand everybody that are advocates on both sides, and for those of us, it's not an easy decision. I think, as somebody mentioned, leadership is maybe making a difficult decision in the face of very hostile criticism. I think, though, true leadership is being analytical about what the issue is and studying it well and listening to the people that you serve and realizing that maybe there's a better decision that could be made, and always looking for a better solution. And I think for us to settle on something because it's expedient or because it's the simpler route is not always the best way to go. So I think I'm always trying to be, I always try to be as thoughtful as I can with my decisions, and sometimes I make an error, and if I can, I'll try to correct it and I'll try to improve it, and I think that's what we're always subject to doing up here. So I certainly think that I'm proud of my colleagues. I'm proud of the Board of Supervisors in trying to tackle a very, very difficult issue. And we're right, nobody's going to want to advocate for having a shelter that serves a homeless population with many needs in their neighborhood. But I think there's a way to try to minimize the impact by finding the best or the least impactful site. So that's what I explained to the constituents that were here, that I met with Supervisor Wynn, whose district this shelter is in, and I explained to her that in a letter directed to her and her colleagues that I didn't agree with the site selection. So I copied my colleagues on that with that letter as well as Congresswoman Sanchez and Senator Correa and Assemblyman Daley. So my position has been clear after many conversations with people who live in that neighborhood that are being impacted. So hopefully that's something that we can continue the conversation on, but more than anything, just to clarify that we don't have the discretion on site selection. So I'm happy to work with those advocates on both sides to try to clarify to the Board of Supervisors if there's a better solution to that shelter problem. The last thing I wanted to say is maybe, Nabil, if you can join us at the podium, a lot of people are talking about water. And I know that people are concerned with, just the condition of the drought, the condition of the water supply, the condition of contamination lawsuits that are pending. But one of the things that came before us tonight, and I think it may have gotten by us without any of us commenting, was agenda item 25M as in Mary. The Municipal Water District of Orange County we're working with them on some informational stuff that's going to be going out to the Santa Ana Unified School District, and we're going to be trying to inform and educate students on that, and I think it's to the tune of $50,000 a year, but we think it's money well spent, and MODOC, as they're called, is a partner of ours. They predominantly supply water to South County, but nonetheless they work with us at the Orange County Water District, and I'm a director on that body as well. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that very soon we're going to be bringing a resolution before the council that is going to help address issues of what we can do better as a city and as a community to conserve water. One thing that we should know is that of all the cities in the county, we conserve more water per capita than any other city in the county. So we already do our fair share. We try very hard. We're very proud of our residents because they already conserve quite a bit more proportionately than some of their counterparts in other cities. But I think what we also want to do, and I know I spoke about this with the city manager, is we want to do a forum on the issue of water. And we want to partner with the Orange County Water District to do it in English, but also in Spanish and possibly Vietnamese as well, because it's such a pervasive issue that we're talking about not just conserving. Conserving is sort of a baseline issue, but we're talking about other alternatives to water generation to increase the supply in the county and the aquifer. The GWRS, which is the groundwater replenishment system, it's an award-winning system that recycles water, and with its final expansion is probably going to provide 20% of the water that we use here in the county, and that's all water that's recycled, treated water. We're talking about desalination, potentially building a plant in Huntington Beach that's going to provide another very high percentage of water through the county, and this is using desalinated treated salt water. So a lot of these things are happening very quickly. We think it's important to go out to the community and explain that to them, and we also have some issues having to deal with contamination in our water, unfortunately. The aquifer is dealing with some plumes of contamination that occurred several years ago. So there's several issues that we need to inform the community about. But Nabil, can you talk about maybe some of the information that we're going to be coming back with on the resolution?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, Council members, City Manager. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to start out with the RFCA, the council item that you had in front of you this evening, which is 25M. It's an agreement with MODOC, Municipal Water District of Orange County, that we have been contracting out for 17 years to provide educational services to school students in the Santa Ana School District. And this last year, I'm proud to tell you that we have reached out to about 13,000 students in Santa Ana, and we are the highest city to do so through that program. We contract with Municipal Water District of Orange County because of their expertise, and they do it all across the county. And it's a great program and it's very beneficial. And for example, Anaheim did 9,000. We did 13,000 students. So I'm proud to tell you about that. As for the drought, we are considering a resolution for you for next council meeting to declare a level 1 a drought, water shortage level that will require that we we asked that residents in Santa Ana reduce their water consumption in a certain percentage to meet the emergency regulations that Governor Brown has issued in July 31st or so. So we'll have that resolution for you to consider. We will have a city council committee meeting coming up this week to discuss the details of the resolution.
Great. So with our partnership with MODOC, with the resolution coming before us at the next council meeting and a potential forum that we're going to be doing in both English and Spanish to inform our residents about water issues generally,
That's
I think
right.
that we're all over this water problem
That's
that
right.
we're doing. And I think for us, we're not as dire as maybe some other areas in the state because some other areas haven't planned as far ahead as we have. But
Sure.
we're certainly going to do our best to try to saturate the community with information and best practices.
Yeah, we have an outreach program that will reach out to the residents and let them know about our objectives and the reduction and what the mandated reduction will be and help them out in trying to reach that level of reduction in water consumption.
Sarmiento, could I chime in really quickly?
Sure.
As we move forward, and I didn't want to pull the item, but I did see the item because I didn't want them all getting
Sure.
all bent out of shape. Why are you pulling all these items? I did have a question, and I brought this up last year again, and as it pertains to, I appreciate water conservation, us going and educating our students about water and the different sources of water.
Yes.
But we have a problem in Santa Ana where many of our residents are not actually drinking our water. We have a lot of water stores, and so what are we going to how are we going to continue to educate? Here we have young kids within the school district where many of the water fountains are not even working. Many of the kids, they're drinking, they're not even drinking the water. They don't drink it at home because they feel that it's contaminated. It's not only in the Latino community, it's in the Vietnamese community. And so I think we need to do a better job, one, at marketing our award-winning water, but two, educating these young kids so they can educate their parents that this is drinkable water. And I don't think that we've really have done extensive outreach on that, and I know we have minimal outreach about our award-winning water, but here we have an opportunity where we are reaching 13,000 kids. How can we really incorporate in this curriculum, informing them that this water, you can drink it, it's free. Their parents are paying $1.50 for a gallon of water at the water store, and they're going every single week because they feel that our Santa Ana water is contaminated, that it's not healthy, and so they're like double paying for water when they don't need to.
And Mayor and Councilmember Martinez, I'm sorry, but one of the things
Sorry,
is
I
we
get
want to make
passionate
sure
about it.
No problem.
that we properly notice these items. So maybe in a workshop setting or a forum where it can reach lots of people, because I think this is really good information, but I'm not so sure that you're reaching the audience of those kids.
I'm done, but when he's going to reach to 13,000.
Let's go back to Councilor Sarmiento and then we'll wrap up.
I just, I didn't
Because I can go on that one too.
Right, so it's easy.
I knew you were going to ask about this, so I have really a list of all the students and all the schools that this organization has reached, and it's 13,000, which is amazing for us. It's a program that's well worth it, and we've been participating with Municipal Water District of Orange County for many years, and we want to continue to do so.
Let's do that. And maybe what we can do is, because, Councilwoman's so passionate, the mayor's passionate, let's have them comment to you and see how we can incorporate those in the forum and message that to MODOC, and let's make sure that they include all these issues when they talk to our 13,000 students. Thank you, Nabil. And with that, good night.
Thank you, Councilor Sarmiento. So with that, I'm just going to adjourn in memory of Arcelia Liera. I wish for the clerk to do whatever is appropriate for the family in terms of condolences or any resolution or anything else that we may want to do. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.